Fam, what's going on? Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here this morning. Good morning to everybody out in the undefeated, and I appreciate you guys joining me right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Call line is open all morning, 205-850-1994. We are talking some early college football lines. If I have to take a break, it's because I'm getting a new dishwasher installed. So long story short, if you know life appliances, right? Home appliances. I put in a new garbage disposal recently, and I put in garbage disposals before. That wasn't the problem. But at the same time, the dishwasher drain, the motor went out. That's according to, because I finally had to call a plumber because I was like, what is going on? So I had to go get a new dishwasher. So the dishwasher, I just got to update. It's coming. So, right, we continue to wash. I mean, and, I have the kids full time. So the amount of dishes that we do is copious. Here, we have a 256 leading off the show. Let's jump into it. Coach Daryl, what's up, man? I appreciate you joining. Good morning to you. Hope you're off to a fine Tuesday morning, man. Come with it.
Yes, sir. Glad to see you getting a dishwasher. Maybe that'll pretend about the future. We can wash some dishes and see clearly now.
Right.
I'm never one for odds. A lot of people, and I've never been one. What's the point spread? I've never been one. I always try to look at the teams, what's projected, and basically just let's look at both teams. Let's see who's got this, who's got the advantage here, who's got the advantage there, who has the better offensive line, who has the better defensive line, who has the best secondary.
Yeah.
I've always been one for matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And Wisconsin is going to play us tough because they're going to be at home, Camp Randall.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, this will be Alabama's first time ever playing Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And their fans are rockers. I've seen them play many times at home. And they're what I call the fundamental squad. They're going to block. They're going to tackle. They're not going to miss many assignments. And so what you have to do, you have to go out there and dominate them from the first whistle to the last whistle and let them know they can't win.
So they played, Coach Darrell, they've actually played twice. One was in, believe it or not, 1928. Alabama went up to Madison and Wisconsin won 15-0. Man, 1928. And then they played, if you forget, they played in 2015, I think in the opener in Arlington with Alabama winning 35-17. Right. And I'm with you too. When I think about, what's up, Jarvis? Good morning to you. Clinton, what's going on? Eugene, Luke, I see you guys inside the comment box. Ruben Poole, good morning to you. On with Coach Darrell to start the show. When I think about Wisconsin, I kind of think about a fundamental team that tackles well. They like to run the football. They're kind of like, they've never really morphed into the new wave of college football. Beth James, good morning to you. I appreciate you. So I think like the number one thing is you're going to get a team that just plays old style football. And you're right. Camp Randall is intimidating. It's going to be the first time that Alabama goes onto the road for the season. And when you play Alabama, no matter who your coach is, it's going to be the Super Bowl for your team because Alabama, despite where they're at in the preseason rankings, they have a target on their back, right? They are still among the standard in college football, and they are going to want to test Coach Kalen DeBoer, and they are going to want to prove that it was all Nick Saban, and that's it. So it'll be a tremendous challenge just going on the road. But I think this coaching staff has looked at things like a tremendous opportunity, right, to prove that they can play on the road, to prove they can play in a challenging environment. And what this is going to do early on, because I think we looked at Wisconsin. I think Alabama beats Wisconsin by more than a touchdown and a half. But it'll set them up to get ready for their later games on the road. Games at Tennessee, games at LSU, games at Oklahoma. So it'll give them an early season. Because I promise you, that game in Wisconsin will be sold out. It'll be the biggest thing to hit Madison, probably the entire season. So these guys are going to get up. And you're right, Jarvis. When you look to the early season quarterbacks that you're going to face, can you guys look up real quick the quarterback that is returning for South Florida? Because think about the quarterbacks that Alabama is also playing in the first 3 games. TJ Finley, the guy from South Florida, I think he comes back, and he was a challenge. He was a monster last year. And then you also have, I guess, Tyler Van Dyke, who has 28 starts under his belt. What else what is on your mind, Coach, when you think about Alabama versus Wisconsin?
Well, also the fact that you're exactly right. Wisconsin is going to be the biggest thing to happen to Wisconsin since 1928. So we can be assured that they'll be hyped, that they'll be prepared, and that they'll be looking for any edge they can get. Mm-hmm. And Alabama has to go up there and show them, dominate them from the first whistle to the last whistle. Let them know you guys got a nice team, but you're not on our caliber. And as you said, that will set the standard and the focus for the games to come at Tennessee, Oklahoma, and the other road games that we play this year. And I can hardly wait.
Byron Brown, is that the same quarterback that was the quarterback last year? It doesn't sound familiar.
I don't think so.
I don't think it is. Because that quarterback last year for South Florida, man, they would split you out, and then he would just run up the middle. That guy he was challenging, right, to take down. That whole game last year, it just kind of had the early season kind of yucks. I was glad they were able to get the hell.
Plus, it was a downpour.
I know, it was crazy. I went there, and it was hot, humid. And then it rained. Remember, because that was that picture that we talked about where Coach Saban was walking off and he looked like he had aged, 25 years. By the way, he looks great right now. Also, Coach, you have Georgia. Alabama is an underdog early on. And I know you don't like odds, but, we're for the sake of it, we're talking about them.
I understand.
The 4-point underdog at home early on. Alabama fans going to be, riled up about that one. But look, Georgia, people forget. So people forget, and then Georgia Bulldogs forget. So let's talk about what people forget. People forget that Alabama beat Georgia last year in the SEC championship, right? Alabama fans know that, and Alabama fans are accustomed to battling with Georgia now that Kirby Smart, has things going. But people forget that Georgia, this is what they forget. Georgia has won their last 30 out of 31 games, which is crazy. That is such a crazy run. And I know they have Clemson to worry about in week 1, but still, that's really impressive, right? 30 out of 31. But Georgia fans forget that Alabama beat them in the SEC title game, right? And that game, they don't even remember it. So I think they come in with a lot of momentum. I think you hear the Georgia Bulldogs continuing to talk nonstop during the summertime about how Nick Saban's out and how they can control the tempo of this game, blah, blah, blah. This will be the biggest game. This will be your preseason Super Bowl, will be Alabama versus Georgia.
I totally agree because, number one, Georgia's going to come in there, and they're going to come in there with the hype. And they should. Like you said, they've only lost one game out of their last 31 games. And they come off a unmerciful beating of Florida State. And so they'll come in hyped up. But I do believe they got to, in the back of their mind, they got to be thinking, you know what? 2 of the last 3 times, even though Alabama, we won the national championship, Alabama has beaten us and beaten us convincingly. So we got to go in here and put the stomp on them early. But I believe that Alabama has the edge simply because, again, people don't forget. They say they do, but they don't. And so what Alabama has to do is just go in there, again, play fundamental football, don't turn the ball over, find find whatever weak spot Georgia has and exploit it. Because the weak spot they've had always, even the year they won the national championship, was their secondary.
Yeah.
And we proved that when the receivers had and Bryce Young had a field day on them. Yeah. That's always been their weak point. They're solid. Their front seven is solid, but their secondary has always been their weak point.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I appreciate you starting off the show with me, Coach. Good stuff from Coach Darrell out in Huntsville, man. Please call again, and I really appreciate your call, Coach Darrell, and I'll catch up with you next time, man.
All right, man. My pleasure.
All right, Coach Darrell calling in from Huntsville, 205-850-1994. Yeah, I see the new avatar, Luke. That's what's up, man. I like it. Yeah, I think Byron's right? It's called, he's saying the Mutts are known for their amnesia, and then Luke is saying it's called selective amnesia, right, when it comes to Alabama, 100%. Yeah, I think, some other lines that kind of stand out to me when you look to the board is, a 2-point favorite up in Rocky Top. I think, Josh Heupel, say what you want. I mean, after Jeremy Pruitt, because I think Tennessee fans felt that Jeremy Pruitt was going to do so much more than what he did at Tennessee. Now, Josh Heupel, maybe he doesn't get the credit he deserves when you talk about top coaches or whatever, but he's put Tennessee back as a challenging team. It's a challenging environment. The last time Alabama was up in Knoxville, they lost the game. This past year, it was a battle with Tennessee. I think this year it'll be another battle. It'll be Coach Kalen DeBoer's really first taste of the SEC on the road. First time, I think, in his coaching career that he's went to Rocky Top, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know, how that is going to play out, but I know it'll be a challenge. The pros for this is the fact that they have a lot of guys on this particular team that have a lot of experience playing in big time games already. You see that they are a almost 9-point favorite against Missouri. I would agree with that. I think Missouri will have a tough time with Alabama, and then Alabama, as you can see, let me see if I can move this up a little bit, is a 1-point favorite against LSU. So basically like a coin flip game, in Baton Rouge. This schedule that Alabama has, and, of course there's a couple more lines that have come out. For example, like Alabama, actually this one's interesting as well. Alabama is a 1.5-point favorite against Oklahoma, and they are a 15-point favorite, 2-touchdown favorite against Auburn. This schedule is going to be ultra challenging for Alabama. But I think when you look to this early season game, as I was saying with Coach, and by the way, the call-in line number is open. I'll put the banner on the screen. It's highlighted, 205-850-1994. What you see, yeah, LSU is a favorite. You're right, Jor. My apologies on that. So LSU is a favorite against Alabama by 1 point. So the games are going to be challenging, and I think like when you look to road games in the SEC, they're always challenging. But particularly, what's challenging about Alabama's schedule? What's up, Kareem Hood? Is the fact that like Tennessee is that environment's crazy, and LSU. If you've ever been, who's been from the undefeated? Who has been from who's been to a game in Baton Rouge as an Alabama fan? Look, they have a hell of a tailgate, and they have some of the best food that you can ever have. But it is wild. The stadium is loud. Brian Kelly, he's a good coach. Coach Saban had a lot of, good things to say about him. I didn't like how the only thing that like kind of have a bad taste about Brian Kelly, two things, is like the fake Southern accent, and then the way that he went after Dallas Turner last year. I didn't like that. Going after him like as a dirty player. Like Dallas Turner, if you know him, like he's a ultimate football player. I think I can't believe he went number 17. And he's a good person, honestly. Like he's a great addition to the locker room. Good morning, Lisa. I see you. Beth James, good morning. Jacob, what's up? Yeah, you've been to Baton Rouge. It's crazy. It's a challenging environment, and I think it'll pose a lot of issues, for Alabama, as it has in the past for, Nick Saban. But I think they'll be all right from it. But it is a big boy schedule. B-Rad, what's up? Jalen Milroe was set to start the next dynasty under DeBoer on the field. Nick Saban wasn't there when Milroe carried last year. Now he's got two of the best running backs to handle the ball this coming season. I mean, if you look to the offensive weapons that Alabama has, I'll actually do a screen transition real quick so we can look at this depth chart for Alabama, just to look at the arsenal that they have, because I think this is a good point. This is Ourlad. So Ourlad has a really good demonstration, and we'll look at the offense, then we'll look at the defense. And if you want to call in and chat with me, that's cool. Call in line is highlighted at the bottom of the screen. So just looking at this theoretical, breakdown of the depth chart for Alabama. Let's just start out at we'll just start at the top and work our way down. Okay. So, and this is just projected based off all of the, depth charts that Ourlads has compiled. I like to use them, honestly. So let's see how it looks. I haven't even looked at this all spring. Kendrick Law at the S, Jeremy Bernard, and Kobe Prentice. I think we can all agree that those are going to be the wide receivers. We've talked about those guys, right? I like the last names of them: Bernard, Prentice, and Law. Sounds like a law firm. And then on the 2 deep, you have Henderson, Caleb Odom, Cole Adams at the wide receiver position. And then in the 3 hole, you got Ryan Williams and Jaron Hamilton. Hamilton making the recovery, posted an update recently on social media. So I like all that. It looks good. I mean, you don't have Rico Scott. You don't have Amari Jefferson on campus. Ryan Williams not on campus yet. So those guys are going to push once they get here and compete in August. So feel good about that. And then the offensive line, as we've talked about several times, right? This is how they have it right here. Elijah Pritchett, but we all know that Caden Proctor is coming back. So let's put Caden Proctor above Elijah Pritchett. Remember, Pritchett was just arrested for speeding in Tuscaloosa. So I don't know, if there's any sort of, what type of consequences there will be under Coach Kalen DeBoer. I'm sure there's some. They don't always announce what is going to happen with the players. So let's put Caden Proctor there at the left tackle position. Not because of the speeding ticket. I just think that Caden Proctor comes back and wins his spot. Then you have Tyler Booker, one of the most experienced offensive linemen in the country, coming back in All-American. You have Parker Brailsford. This is kind of the story that we'll all be watching during, August camp, is how he snaps the football now that he can actually participate. I think there was like a transfer credit issue or whatever, but he just actually posted yesterday on his Instagram that he is in the game, NCAA football. So when the NCAA football drops this year, you'll be able to play with Parker Brailsford. Jaden Roberts, another probably still an underrated offensive lineman in the world of college football, right? You have him at the right guard position, and then you have Wilcom Formby at the right tackle position. And then I guess that, where is Elijah Pritchett going to go? I guess into the 2 deep. The 2 deep on the right, for now, it looks like Nyquil Bentrade, who's a transfer from Texas A&M. Rock Montgomery is a name to watch. Ola Celine, Miles McVay, Robbie Oots. Now we're looking at the tight ends. So that's kind of how things shake out for the offensive line. Now, yesterday, and On3 put this out, that Alabama is in play for an offensive lineman, and his name is, let me get it, Gino Vandermark. And he is out of Michigan State. And he's already been predicted to come to Alabama. I don't know where he fits in. I think he adds depth to the offensive line. I think he's an interior offensive lineman. So, you look to Alabama's interior linemen, and we look starters. You have Tyler Booker, Parker Brailsford, Jaden Roberts. I don't think that Gino Vandermark is beating out any of those guys, but I think he's coming in to add depth. I'm curious to see what happens to a player like Rock Montgomery or a player like Olas Allen, right? Where do those guys fit in? And you can still see, like, a lot of those guys are still young. I mean, Rock Montgomery, redshirt freshman. Nyquil Bentrade, redshirt freshman. Olas Allen, redshirt freshman. Miles McVay, redshirt freshman. So a lot of underclassmen in that 2 deep. And I think Gino has a little bit more experience. And I think he does have some ties to Coach Kapilovic, who is Alabama's offensive line coach. Let's zoom in again and let's look at Alabama's tight end. And you do need a backup center. I wonder, Luke, if the backup center will be Rock Montgomery, right? Beth is ready for football. Us too. All All right. Let's look at the tight end position. So you have C.J. Dupree, you have Robbie Oots, and Josh Cuevas. Josh Cuevas came to Alabama from Washington, and I think he had a pretty good spring. And I remember I think he gets his haircut at the same place I go, here in Tuscaloosa, and he was telling the barber that he can see the competition in terms of it being a higher level since he's come from Washington to Alabama, right? Like the Pac-12 is a lot different than the SEC. And I get it. What Washington did and what Coach Kalen DeBoer, they got to the championship game, 100%. Like they did it. Alabama did not. But I think like the gauntlet of coming over here and the daily grind going against higher level competition, because, you know, if you put talent against talent, I think Alabama is the more talented team than Washington every single year. It was just that, you know, they had a better game plan. You could say what they want. It was a better team, a better coach. You could look at it a bunch of different ways. Where Washington, an easier schedule. I don't know how Alabama and Washington last year. But the point is, every single day you're going to be battling with the best players across the country. So what I like about this tight end room is a lot of things. These tight ends are completely different in every shape or form, right? So you have C.J. Dupree, who's different than Robbie Oots, who's different than Josh Cuevas, who they don't have listed here, is Danny Lewis, Jay Lindsey. Danny Lewis, look, I'm going to keep Danny Lewis. I would say that he's battling with C.J. Dupree for that starting spot. And again, this is from our lads. What's up, Mickens? I appreciate it. Clink, what's up, man? See you inside the comment box. Good morning to you. And I think that the tight end room, they're all different. Like, people forget that Danny Lewis is 6'5", 260 pounds, and he made some plays this spring, 1,000,000%. And so don't forget about him. I know he's not listed on the board right here, but I would put him with C.J. Dupree. The other thing about C.J. Dupree, though, is people don't realize he played in 540 snaps. So I know when you look to a transfer that headed out was Amari Niblack, right, who went to Texas. I don't know. I don't think that will be a significant loss at all. And the way that Jeremy Bernard came in, you know, I don't see Isaiah Bond being a significant loss. Really don't. And Seth left, and you have Parker Brailsford. So, you know, the real guys who, and we'll talk about the defense that you have to think about in terms of being the biggest impact that left was Caleb Downs. But you know what? Keon Sabb is a baller. He comes in with a lot of experience. He's really good. I think he might be one of the best defensive players on Alabama's team, him and Deontay Lawson. So they were able to fill, not just like patchwork, but they were able to really fill in spots from the transfer portal. Okay. Talk about continue to cruise down on our lads' early season depth chart. We're talking about the quarterback position right now. So you have Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, Dylan Lonergan, and I think it's going to fold out like that in terms of, you know, who you have at the quarterback position. But you know, at the back end spot, we're up at the top of your screen. Austin Mack. It was interesting because during practice, and I know it's just practice in the rotation, but I saw. Oh, we didn't even talk about the wide receivers. I'll go quarterbacks and wide receivers. We didn't see, or what we saw was Austin Mack ahead of Dylan Lonergan, like taking reps. I don't think that meant much, but we didn't see it. So, and let me talk about the wide receivers real quick before I talk about the quarterbacks. I wanted to just to hit on real quick that Caleb Odoms and Cole Adams. Like, I know we all want to talk about Ryan Williams and, you know, of course, we're like sleeping on Emmanuel Henderson. I want to highlight Caleb Odom and Cole Adams because I think those particular players are guys who are going to be problems because they're dynamic mismatches. And what I mean by that is Caleb Odoms has exceptional height. He's a big man that I think can create problems inside the red zone. I think with a guy like Cole Adams, who knows? This might be a guy who ends up catching, you know, 30 to 40 balls when he's not even slated to be a starter just because he can come underneath and make you miss, catch, turn up field, do whatever he's got to do. I think with the quarterback situation, it's a great problem to have. People get mad about competition. I think competition is good for the overall product because when you and we're at the top of your screen right now. Jalen Milroe, comes in, he's going to be pushed by Ty Simpson every single day. Dylan Lonergan, but there is no quarterback competition. Like Jalen Milroe is 1,000,000% the guy, and it's up to him to continue to retain that position as a starter. Ty Simpson is very capable, and remember, when you are the quarterback and you're in the number 2 seed or the number 3 seed, you're only one play away from being the actual guy, right? Y'all know that I follow the 49ers, religiously, and what was one of the biggest things that the 49ers faced a couple years ago, right? They lost all their quarterbacks. I mean, what were they down to, like the 4th quarterback or something like that? And now it's when we saw the emergence of Brock Purdy. So I like the competitive nature of Ty Simpson. I like that he's standing steady. I like that he's here. I like what he brings to the table. Good kid. He knows the schematics of the game because of his pops, who's the head football coach. He's got a ton of athleticism. So like everything about the quarterback room, and Dylan Lonergan, he's right there. So you can see Ty's only a redshirt sophomore. All it takes is 1 year. Right? I always remind you guys to think about the 1 year when Mac Jones led Alabama to the national championship. It just took 1 season. That's it. It's all it takes is just 1 season. Doesn't have to be a multi-year type guy to be able to get seen for the NFL. The running back room, I think, is exceptional. We've talked about that many different times. Call-in line is open, 205-850-1994. When you look to the running back room, it's elite. It's exceptional. It's dynamic, whatever adjective you want to use to describe the running back room, that's what it is. Start at the back end with Richard Young. I always like to start with Richard Young because people are like, you're sleeping on him. Like, we're never sleeping on Richard. Like, we know him in the ecosystem, but what is beautiful about, like, if you step out of the ecosystem of Alabama and you just even go into like the SEC talk, or you start talking national football, nobody knows about Richard Young. What's up, JG? I see you inside the comment box. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Nobody knows about Richard Young. Like, even if, and I don't know how many people were watching Alabama spring game, and I know it was on ESPN, but if you weren't looking for it, you didn't see it. But Richard Young, man, I think he probably had one of the most impactful spring games out of all the players on Alabama's team. I know Jeremy Bernard stood out, and, there was some other guy, like Cole Adams had a really nice spring game as well. But like Richard Young, man, the guy absolutely balled 1,000,000%. I mean, completely crushed it in every shape or form. Was certainly impressed with what he did on the football field. I also feel that Justice Haynes is, he's a play away from doing something special every single time he touches the football. And if you rewind to the game against Michigan, how excited were you when you saw Justice Haynes as the featured back to start the second half against Michigan? You're like, okay, this is it. Here he goes. He's going to get a shot. And in those short opportunities that he had, you were excited about him. I don't know why he didn't play more last season. And nothing against Jace, because I think that Jace was a little bit underappreciated as a running back here. But you also had Roydell Williams. And by the way, I think Roydell is a really good pickup for Florida State. I cannot wait to see how he's utilized in Florida State system. I need to catch up with some guys from Florida State to kind of figure out how those transfers are doing, because, they certainly picked up a lot from Alabama. Let's see if we can name them all. Benson, I think he was injured during spring, like sometime during spring for Florida State. Roydell Williams went over there. TJ Ferguson went over there. Earl Little went over there. And I think you had one more, help me out, undefeated, in terms of who went to Florida State. But whatever the case is, I have a lot of respect for Roydell Williams, and I did for Jace as well. He got banged up in the SEC title game, and that's when you saw the emergence of Jam Miller step up. Jam Miller, can carry the load, can shoulder the load, can be, the type of back that, what's up, Kyle? I see you inside the comment box, man. Kyle, recognize Kyle. Jam Miller can be the featured back. I think he could rush for, 1,000 yards if they needed him to. But let me ask you this. I said Malik Benson got hurt. I think he got hurt. Hopefully it's not too bad. Let me ask you this, undefeated. Type Y if you feel that Alabama will have 1,000-yard running back this year. Oh, Sean Murphy. Man, you guys are on top of it. Type Y inside the comment box if you feel that Alabama will have 1,000-yard running back this year. 3 Kyles up in here. Bama fan Kyle too. Hey, did you guys see there was like the largest gathering of Kyles? It was like somewhere in Texas. They were going to try to have like all the Kyles together. All right, so everybody's on board with a 1,000-yard running back from Alabama. And the reason I asked that, and you might think that's a silly question, but you know, when you have a three-headed attack at running back, you can distribute the football and keep all these guys fresh if they fit within the game plan and the scheming. You can keep all of them fed. Super easy, right? So I just like I'm kind of on the fence. Like Luke Weaver is saying, you know, that he's it's going to be hard with dual running backs. I know it's going to be hard with three running backs. So I'm on the fence about this. I think they will definitely rush for they'll probably rush for like 1,500 yards as a team. But I don't know if you're necessarily have 1,000-yard back. They could if they wanted to, but they don't have to. And that's, you know, it probably doesn't even matter. I just think that they're going to feed the running backs in this system. Really, you could, yeah. I mean, think about the yards that Jalen is going to rush for as well. And then you have the two running backs that aren't even listed on the screen. You know, Daniel Hill and Kevin Riley, right? Kevin Riley is going to be added. All right, let's talk some defense. And this is what we're looking at is our lads on the screen. So our lads puts together depth charts. So we talk about depth charts. I don't know if you can talk depth charts with Coach Kalen DeBoer, right? So you have up at the top. I'm not sure if you can see that. Let me slide that down just a little bit. Jamarian Lathan. You have LT Overton and Keon Keeley up at the top. Now, one of the biggest storylines during the springtime, besides, I guess, like James Brockemeyer being at center, was Keon Keeley being moved from, edge rusher to the defensive line. I thought about this a lot, and I like what they're doing with Keon Keeley because I think that he is dynamic enough to be impactful from anywhere you put him on the field. I'm telling you, like when you see him at campus, when you see him on the field, he looks like an NFL type player. And I would suspect, and I would venture to say that the two names that you are most eager to see on the defense, let me ask you, undefeated, Keon Keeley and Jan Zapier, right? Like those two guys, of course they had hype, but they have high expectations. But I think you're excited about them because you know how talented they're going to be when it's their time. Now, if they can stay patient, if they can stay within the process, I think that Jan Zapier and Keon Keeley, I would venture to say that they're first, second round type talents down the road. Probably not right now, but they need to develop. Jamarian Lathan, quality. LT Overton, I didn't even really hear too much about LT Overton, to be honest, this springtime. So I have to get some updates on him. Tim Keenan, I think he's a monster, to be honest. I love the fact that he's right here out of Ramsey in Birmingham. Quality individual. He's a professional. Big, strong. I'll never forget the time I was going into the Malmore complex and he opened up the door for me. And he's like a refrigerator, right? He's like gigantic. He's jacked. He's huge. Damon Payne, James Smith. James Smith seems like he's a little bit undervalued. I think he'll get some significant playing time. Tim Smith, Jaheim Otis. Let me get your take on Jaheim Otis. What's your take on Jaheim Otis? When you think about Jaheim, what do you think about Jaheim Otis? Because he had, I think last year he was a little bit banged up, but he played under his size. He lost a bunch of weight. Remember, he had this huge weight transformation. He was like, what was he, like 350? And then he was like 290. So Jaheim Otis has him on the 2D, but I think when you look to this, like just because they're on the ones, the 2D, like depending on the different packages, he could still be a starter. Hunter Osborne has in the 3 deep as well. I don't know if I agree with this next setup that our lads has, right? Because they have Q Rob, Keanu Coate, and Quay Rusa. I think, look, I have a tremendous amount of respect, and I am excited. I think Q-Rob could have a monster season. I think that's probably still a position battle. This might be the biggest position battle that we have going on right now, outside of whoever's going to be corner. But I think that the biggest battle will be between Q-Rob, Keanu, and Quay. I just think that I don't know who's the starter is going to be. You have so much talent right there for that wolf. I don't know. Inside linebacker, elite. Jahad Campbell, future NFL guy. Justin Jefferson. He adds value. He adds experience. Moves well, better than you think. Justin Okoronkwo, this guy's a monster in the waiting. Like Coach Saban said, if he would have played more American football, he would have been a 5-star. Did you know that Justin Okoronkwo had 12 tackles in A-Day? 12. You have Deontay Lawson, stud, right? Probably the best player on the field on the defensive side. You have Jeremiah Alexander. Look, I like Jeremiah Alexander. Him and Richard Young went at each other a couple different times during A-Day, and I'm going to say Richard Young won those battles. Sterling Dixon is very, very talented. When I look to the corner position, and we talked about this, and we've talked about this, plenty of times about kind of the Alabama secondary and what's on our minds. When you look to the Alabama secondary and thoughts and concerns about the Alabama secondary. So let's discuss it. You have Zabian Brown and Damani Jackson as your current corners. I've said that I am concerned about the corner play because you really and really the defensive secondary as a whole, if they were to go to this front, the experience and the cohesiveness, those guys have never played together. There's only one starter coming back, Malachi Moore, right? Deshaun Jones. So let's say Deshaun Jones comes in and he's your corner over Zabian Brown. I think we feel a little bit better because he has experience. But yeah, and this is obviously outdated, Jor, because Graham Nicholson's going to be the kicker. We'll talk about special teams next. But I think if your kicker, if your corner comes in and it's Deshaun Jones and then Damani Jackson, you feel better about it. But then again, look at the secondary. That's going to be 3 guys who came in that haven't played together from different programs. Theoretically, it could be Deshaun Jones. It could be a Keon Sapp from Michigan. It could be Damani Jackson who came in from USC. David, what's up, man? See you inside the comment box. It really looks like an all-star roster. Look, there's stars on stars. There still is. There's a ton of guys coming in. I don't know what Deshaun Jones was ranked, in terms of like his star value. But look at the guys on the back end. Look at that 2 deep. Jalil Hurley, Bray Hubbard. Bray Hubbard will hit you. Drake Kirkpatrick, undervalued. That interception that he had in A-Day still stands out. Zay Mincy, monster. Red Morgan, monster. Jalen Mbakwe, monster. So feel good about it. And hopefully Devontae Smith has a really good year. I like him. He's a good kid. Crazy that Alabama has another Devontae Smith. Still trips me out. Right? It'd be like having another Mac Jones or, Najee Harris or something like that. Let's talk about the special teams unit. So, Jalen Hell, that's who was injured. I like, so this is on our lads doesn't have it updated with Connor with Graham Nicholson being added. I really like the overall group here, and this our lads has put Jeremy Bernard as the punt and kick returner. I don't think we have any idea who the kicker and punt returner is going to be, but Jeremy Bernard could be a hell of an option. James, what's up, man? Appreciate you being inside today. Appreciate you being a member of the Undefeated. Thank you so much for being here, man. Appreciate you. Hacker Music, what's going on, man? Appreciate you being here. Hacker Music says that I've always been concerned about the secondary. I've seen us get burned even when we were loaded back there. That's true. And look, last year, I think we felt really confident about Alabama in the secondary, right? H on special teams means holder. James Burnham was the holder last year. Sometimes they have the backup quarterback do that. But in this particular case, they have James Burnham being the holder. Look, last year, and you look back at the secondary, 3 guys were drafted in the NFL, right? Kool-Aid, Terrion, Jalen Key. Not in that order, but you get what I'm saying. You had 3 NFL guys out there, and Alabama's secondary was still challenged. They were challenged all season long. And I get it. They were challenged by other guys who are going to the NFL, like the guys from Texas. Remember, I'll never forget when Worthy beat Caleb Downs over the top. The guys from Ole Miss, crazy good. And the schematics that Lane Kiffin have, really good. Yeah, you're right, Luke. Mr. Relevant was Jalen Key. Tennessee, their wide receivers were a lot better. And then LSU's wide receivers, my goodness, they were crazy. So that secondary was tested a ton, and they did really good. Even when Terrion Arnold had to bump out, you had Trey Amos come in. So I don't know if this secondary is going to be better than last year. I would doubt it, just because I don't know. Like, how many first round guys do we have in the secondary? Just looking at this without Deshaun Jones being added. I mean, let me ask you, Undefeated, do you think that Keon Sabb, Malachi Moore, or Damani Jackson will be drafted in the first round? Bama Jeff, what's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. Yeah, I would say that the secondary last year is better than this secondary. That's my final answer, at least at this point in time. Maybe my mind will change by the time we get to the season. Whatever. And then you look at the special teams. Let's look at the special teams real quick. James Burnham, I mean, probably one of the most underrated punters. People know about him. I think he might be like the punter of the year this year. Connor Talty will not be the kicker. It'll be Graham Nicholson, who's coming in from Miami of Ohio. This needs to be updated. Long snapper, Neelan Hibbett. And then you have the holder is James Burnham, who's also the punter. We do not know who will be the punter, the punt returner, or the kick returner for Alabama this season, but they put in, Jeremy Bernard, which I think is a fine addition. I think when you look to, his highlights that we looked at yesterday, they were fine. I mean, he's elite. I didn't realize how fast he is. And he kind of just has that like football type speed. Bama Jeff saying Damani Jackson would be a first round talent, right? I think I would say out of that group probably so. And depending on what happens with Keon Sabb, maybe he'd throw him in. And I asked this, I think, yesterday. Where do you think Malachi Moore would be drafted? Maybe like second, third round type guy? That's probably where I have Malachi. But a really good addition to your squad coming in. Early on the show, to open up today's show, I was talking about early college football lines. And when you look to the lines, and this is from DraftKings, DraftKings has Alabama as an underdog. And look, I have a bigger list than this that I'll present. But I could take this bottom banner off so you guys can see the bottom. But as you can see, games against Georgia and against LSU, Alabama is the underdog. It's not often you see that Alabama as an underdog. But, this is the way too early. And again, we're in May, right? The football season is actually getting closer. But still, it's not often that you see, Alabama as an underdog, which is fine. We understand that Georgia is going to be a very talented team. We understand that LSU is going to be a very challenging team, and that is going to be a very challenging game on the road against LSU. And I'm curious to see how this team manages playing on the road under Coach Kalen DeBoer. And really just, if you zoom out, Coach Kalen DeBoer playing on the road in big-time games in the SEC. And I brought this up before. Like when you look to Alabama's spring game, right? They had what was it? Was it 75,000? They say 76,000. Washington Stadium only fits 72,000. So you had more at a spring game than you do in your actually home stadium that you were at these past couple of seasons. Tennessee, the third weekend in October, one of the biggest rivalries in college football, right? 72. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And I don't know how many that the Baton Rouge Stadium holds. Death Valley, does it hold 100,000? What's crazy is they haven't even filled over that back end. And it's huge, and it just kind of like goes vertical up. And the preseason Super Bowl will 1,000,000% be Georgia, Alabama, and Coach Saban will be here, and Coach Saban will pick. I think Alabama will beat Georgia at home. And what will happen is that will spur so much early season momentum for this team. I don't know, like where they'll go if they beat. And I say this quite frequently. This Georgia game, it doesn't make or break Alabama. It helps Alabama either way. Because if they lose to Georgia, okay, you get punched in the gut, you move forward, and it gives you an opportunity to grow as a team, to get better as a team, right? If you beat Georgia, this team's like, we're coming off a win against Wisconsin, and I know that's not going to be an easy win, even though, if you live here and you're part of the SEC fabric, you're like, you beat a Big Ten team early in the season. Whatever. You have to win. You have to beat Wisconsin. You can't look towards Georgia, and you can't overlook South Florida or Western Kentucky. I'm not saying that. But if they do beat Georgia, man, it would be crazy because Georgia, as you see, they are supposed to win that game. Georgia has, Kirby Smart, the best coach in college football. Georgia is a team at that point in time that will have likely won their last 33 out of 34 games. Yeah, exactly, Brian. The pressure's on Georgia, right? All eyes will be on Georgia. I would imagine that slides to like 5.5. They'll be coming off a win over Clemson. And, that game will be on national TV, and all eyes will be watching the Georgia beat up on Clemson. All eyes will be watching Alabama and Wisconsin. But the bigger game is Georgia versus Clemson, I think. So when you come in here, new coach, he's vulnerable. At least that's what you think. Going against a quarterback that a lot of the nation feels can't lead this team to the national championship, even though they're wrong. And you come in with the attitude like that, and you probably get punched in the mouth, right? The second we can attack their secondary, I'm not sure if you can. And Ruben, you're right. Wisconsin will be very physical. That game is going to be much more challenging than people are thinking. Colin Hitchler, but the great thing is Colin Hitchler will tell him just that. He's from Wisconsin. Like he was just coaching there. And, on top of that, these coaches have been in the Big Ten before, right? You had Kalen DeBoer when he was at Indiana. Nick Sheridan was at Indiana. And Daniel, you are right. Alabama is a 15-point favorite over Auburn. Thank you very much for adding that. And actually, Alabama is a 1.5-point favorite over Oklahoma. And the turnaround time, I always think about that turnaround time for Alabama's back-end schedule. Are you serious? Like, you have Oklahoma get on a plane, go play in Norman, back end of the schedule, season's on the line, right? You play Oklahoma, which will be a very, very challenging environment. Much more challenging than Camp Randall, I would imagine, especially at that point in time. What's up, Chris? I appreciate you being here. Luke Fickell's a really good coach. So is Brett Venables. That game, that's amazing that Alabama's going to Wisconsin, to Tennessee, to LSU, to Oklahoma. Man. Yeah, Byron, Luke is an excellent coach. We forget about that. Damn, Bama's 1,400. You better clean up on those odds. Whoa. That's wild. I appreciate it, Daniel. Man, that's crazy. Oof. So, like I'm saying, like the schedule is challenging, and that back-end schedule. And then you have Auburn. And despite Alabama being a 15-point favorite against Auburn, Hugh Freeze. People are like, don't call him the boogeyman. I don't know what he is, but he could definitely play Nick Saban really tight. You know what? He was one game away. What's up, Patriot Life? Good morning, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for being here, Patriot Life. He was one thing about this. Because Gus Malzahn went head-to-head with Nick Saban plenty of times. It's just Auburn versus Alabama. I believe Coach Saban ended his coaching career with a 4-2 record against Hugh Freeze. If Hugh Freeze would have won that last game, the 4th and 31, Coach Saban would have ended his career 3-3 versus Hugh Freeze. I don't know what it is about Hugh Freeze. He coaches at a higher level against Alabama, or he did against Coach Saban. And there was so many misdirections and, they actually lost to my beloved New Mexico State Aggies the week before because they were overlooking them. Yeah, it's kind of, it's sleazy. You have him, you have Pearl down there, but those guys can't coach. And I think depending on, where things are at, that's like the back end trap game, rivalry game that you can't overlook, because after that, on the horizon, things work out well for Alabama throughout the year. You have the SEC championship. You imagine this run? Just think about this, okay? You play Oklahoma on the road. Then you come back and you play your biggest rival, Auburn. And then after that, you go into the SEC championship game. Like, that is a back-end gauntlet schedule unlike anything else. That's why I continue to say whoever is able to win the college football championship this season, this is my opinion, will be among one of the greatest college football teams ever. And this is a new wave of college football. So, this year is completely different than, years past, and completely different than the BCS. But I think because of this back-end gauntlet, it's going to be one of the best teams that's able to stay healthy, that's able to run the table in an ultra-talented schedule. Conference championship is no longer just East versus West. It's 1 versus 2. I mean, and I've said this before, you could very likely play Georgia 3 different times. Chris from New Jersey. Chris, what's up, man? I appreciate you being here, man. Good morning.
Kyle, good morning. Happy May, brother.
Happy May, yeah.
I get it that it's a little, off times, and the portal came and went, and the coaches are very nervous about the DBs, but Kyle, DeBoer and the staff, who you and I and you and everybody has praised and what a great job they're doing. These guys, They are unbelievable evaluators of talent.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's getting $10 million, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't you think that he says, remember, this guy just went to the national championship, beat Texas with a bunch of 3 stars.
Uh-huh.
These are facts, right?
Uh-huh.
And don't you think he's looking at the defensive backs? He sees Domani Jackson. He's like, this guy was coached all wrong. We got an All-American here, and he's got the guy from Michigan State. Don't you think he's going, We've got unbelievable talent here. We don't need to bring anybody in. We just got to work with what we have.
Yep.
Also, people have to realize, even Oregon, okay, not every school is going to have unlimited cash the entire forever. There at some point it's like I was an economics major. Remember the law of diminishing marginal utilities? All the cash in the world still won't buy you a championship team, Kyle. You said it so many times.
Yeah, you can't.
You got to have kids that want. How many times if a kid is going just for the bag, which we all know that freshman that just left, he went for a big sack, and and that doesn't mean he's going to be an All-American. That doesn't mean he's going to be a Terrion Arnold or Kool-Aid or Minkah Fitzpatrick. For me, I think that we've got to we got to go back to the old trust the process, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy right now. I'm happy. You know what I'm the most happy about, Kyle? You should be able to guess this, my friend. We talk every week. That Ryan Williams is going to be on campus on May 25th. That's only a couple weeks away.
Man.
And he's getting praised from his coach before he even gets here. And, you and I were on eggshells. We were freaking out. And the day that he signed, I remember, I think you and the coaches and probably Taylor and all the undefeated, the day that he signed, we all slept like little babies.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a bear in hibernation after having such a rough time with Saban. So I think that you can complain about everything, but At one point, A-Day was on the SEC Network last night, and I was watching Milroe, and I and Adam is we say hello to each other. We're pals in the chat. He's going to try to. He's originally from New Jersey. We're going to try to get a drink before I come down to Bama in the fall. So, but I don't get the naysaying, man. This guy. First of all, Bill O'Brien was awful. Okay, I'd like to say Bill O'Brien was great. If Bill O'Brien was great, he would have got us a national championship. He misused. He wasn't as bad as Pete Golding, but you had Bryce Young, the first pick, and some of the plays we watched it with Kane. Mm-hmm. Tommy Rees was a nice guy, but in way over his head.
I 1,000,000% agree. Yeah.
And listen, let's face it. If Bryce Young had Sark, he would have got a national championship himself. Yeah, those are facts.
Oh, facts.
You had
100%.
And I know we had some injuries with the receivers going into the national championship game, but I think for some reason I said Sark would have found a way, and Bill O'Brien didn't. And so this guy, DeBoer. This is the first time in 18 years now, because I've been following Saban for 17, so this is 18 now. So we've got a pure offensive-minded coach. This guy just went to the national championship. He's an unbelievable coach. I think I've said to you, and I'll keep on reminding you for the next 3 years that this is Saban 2.0. This guy's quality, and now you've got and by the way, I like how some people in the chat, not everybody, but they're upset that DeBoer is palling around with Jalen Milroe. Kyle, are you nuts? This guy, he's also a quarterback whisperer, Kyle. He's saying he's giving him all the support and the props that he hasn't gotten basically for most of his time in Alabama. He had a guy that wanted them to switch to tight end or big receiver. So Jalen Milroe finished in the top voting for the Heisman. He just missed going to the New York for the viewing. And, listen, and I said if he's the starting quarterback on day one, which it's going to look like he will be, that means that he has got a full grasp of DeBoer's offense. And, and what do you think these guys are doing right now? They're studying. DeBoer is palling around with Milroe. And they're watching Washington footage of Penix. This is when to dump the ball off. Remember, how many times did he not have any outlets to throw to when they were sacking him? You remember, let's not forget how many sacks Bryce Young had to take. How many sacks did Milroe take? We can all blame Milroe. You can't. How many times did he have to pick up the ball off the ground from getting it snapped to him on the floor? Right. So I think we should all be just a little tad more positive, Kyle. Milroe is. I think Milroe for Heisman right now. I look at Wisconsin. I'm from the Big Ten, Kyle. Mm-hmm. I think you giving Wisconsin 7.5 points all day long. They're going to go up to Wisconsin and batter them, right? Yep. Tennessee, I'm coming to the game. I hope I see you and all the undefeated. That I'm nervous. That makes me nervous. At Tennessee, I'm a little nervous. The rest of them, I'm not. LSU is going to have big shoes to fill. That guy is a better quarterback than anybody could imagine, even though, he ended up winning the Heisman. But, so listen, I think we all have to be, this is a good time of year. The summer enrollees are getting here in just a matter of a couple weeks. I think the one thing that we're missing is we could have lost a whole lot more players in this portal, Kyle, which we didn't. Mm-hmm. We got to at some point we got to go and listen. Coach Sean, I have respect. I've learned more about football from that guy. I really enjoy listening to Coach Sean. He gives us all these little life lessons. I think I'm older than he is. He's giving me life lessons. I like that. But at some point we got to, Kyle. We got to say a little half full, man. The way look how positive you are with your little workout group, your big workout group. with I saw that footage. I see that footage when I wake up, and I wake up at the crack of dawn too, Kyle. And this, positive in the morning. You got your group, and we're positive. We got to think half full. You got a guy who's returning a quarterback that just may be given the keys to a Ferrari, Kyle. We've been driving around in like a Volkswagen, and now listen, I a couple quick things I just want to tell you now. I do have an outstanding bet with this channel for ribs. So I think you should take that bet on with me, Kyle, because you're the high exalted ruler of this channel. So my bet is that Caden Proctor starts on the first day of the season. And so I'd like to bet you some ribs on that, my friend. Before I go, great job. This channel is outstanding. We're very appreciative of you. But I want to give you a Saban quote for you to think about, because I saw this and I was like, oh, this is Kyle Henderson right here.
Okay.
If you want everyone to like you, sell ice cream. If you want to be a leader, be a leader. And that's what you are, Kyle. You're a leader. You're not, you've got to, there's got to be not everyone can like you if you're the leader, but if you're a leader and you're doing the right thing, then that's it. And that's what you are. You're doing the right thing. You're a leader of this channel. You're a leader of this community, and we're here to stick with you. And, we appreciate you more than you know. So, so remember, we don't want you to sell ice cream. We want you to be a leader, Kyle.
Yep.
I like ice cream though. So, listen, Kyle, have an absolutely wonderful day. Roll Tide to you and the team and to the undefeated. And, we will talk soon, my friend.
All right, man. Appreciate it, man. Take it easy. All right. That is, David, calling, that was Chris calling out New Jersey. One second, as I get in. Ty, what's up, man? I have to take this call. I told everyone in the beginning I'm getting you today, so open up. What's up, man?
What's going on? Kyle's taking the call. Everybody in the undefeated. I love that last call. I really loved that last call. There were a few things that I think I want to expand on because I think it's very interesting, right? One of the things that I wrote down was that the last caller was talking about how Alabama could have lost more. And we talked about this with Peyton Woodyard yesterday, that I have all the respect in the world for Peyton Woodyard. Why? Because he gave this new staff a chance, right? A lot of people didn't. And whenever we look at this recruiting class, Kalen DeBoer came into Alabama, and one of the first things I talked about with Coach Sean whenever he got here, whenever there was some initial worry about whether or not we're going to go after Zion Grady decommitted. And for those of you that have been here, you'll remember my theory was simple. At the time when Kalen DeBoer first got here, I wasn't worried about the class of 2025. Why? Because we had to re-recruit the class of 2024. We had to re-recruit the entire roster. 2025, to me, while, listen, you always need to be on the forefront. You always need to be on the front foot in recruiting. I talk about boxing. I talk about fighting all the time. You don't want to be fighting off the back foot, especially in recruiting. You want to be proactive, not reactive. But at the same time, there must be a level of nuance where we understand, hey, Kalen DeBoer just got here. The entire staff is gone outside of a few key recruiters that they were able to maintain that work in the background, that do a fantastic job. And aside from a Robert Gillespie, aside from a Freddie Roach, that was the only continuity Alabama had. And so being able to re-recruit the old roster was first and foremost. Being able to re-recruit the class of 2024, that was big. And instantly off the rip, you had a Jameer Grimsley decommit and head to Florida. And listen, I have no ill will, not at all. I have always been of the mindset, do what's best for you, especially in this transfer portal era, because if you don't do what's best for you off the rip, if you try and go somewhere and you might not be 100% happy, you're probably going to transfer anyways, right? So make the correct decision the first time. And if Grimsley had second thoughts, then by all means, I hope he succeeds out at Florida. I hope that he has a great time out at Florida. But at the end of the day, re-recruiting the class of 2024 was Kalen DeBoer's first priority. And that's what I love that caller pointed out, Kyle, that we could have lost a lot more. We had to re-recruit a class. We had to re-recruit a roster. And already Alabama's in the top 10 classes of 2025. I think things are looking up. Now, I do have questions, but understand I have always been one that separates questions and concerns. Usually whenever you hear the moniker, oh, I have questions, they're really meaning concerns. But when you hear me say I have questions, I mean I have questions. I'll tell you if I'm concerned about something.
Yeah, sorry. The dishwasher just got here. So for the past 5 days, I know, poor me, but what I figured out is because the dishwasher wouldn't drain because the motor died. I have a shop vac vacuum, which, by the way, if you don't have one, get one. They're amazing. So I've been shop vacuuming. So I've been doing the dishes still in there. And then after I get my shop vac and I drain out the water and take it outside, let it go down the alley and then come back in. So, but it was good. I got used to it. It was like part of the process, and since I have the kids full time, the amount of dishes is like, it's unbelievable. Ty, I wanted to ask you, and I know you're talking recruiting real quick, but yesterday DraftKings came out with these way too early spreads, 7.5 against Wisconsin. I think Alabama. That's going to be an ultra challenging game, more difficult than people expect because. It's at Camp Randall. It's going to be challenging, blah, 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 blah. Georgia, I'm not surprised. All the pressure is on Georgia in that game. At this point in time, in my opinion, they'll have won their last 33 out of 34 games. Tennessee is going to be ultra challenging. I think on the road, that'll be Coach Kalen DeBoer's first big-time SEC game on the road, which I think he will be up for. But, I mean, Josh Heupel, look, I know we don't like Josh Heupel here, but he's done a lot more at Tennessee than Jeremy Pruitt. Right, Jeremy Pruitt, great defensive-minded coach. Josh Heupel has put this offense to be a very challenging and dynamic offense. And Missouri, that's a pretty big point spread here at Bryant-Denny. But it's going to be challenging for the Tigers, even with Eli Drinkwitz and what he has coming in, and then an underdog against LSU on the road, basically like a coin flip game. They're also a 1.5 point favorite against Oklahoma on the road. Ty, your thoughts on these kind of way too early lines?
Yeah, so Wisconsin, we've talked a lot about Wisconsin. Coach Sean, Coach Jay, and we talked about it last night. And one of the things that we keep reminding people is that Wisconsin's going to be prepping for Bama now. Yeah, like that's going to be their Super Bowl. How many times you saw Tennessee rip down goalposts for beating Alabama, right? Like it's not the same. There's levels to this, and Alabama is on that level to where people proverbially, whether you have the national championship or not, Alabama is a team that has a target on their back. And that's just the way it is. So I think Wisconsin is going to be a game to watch, but ultimately I think Alabama gets it done. I can understand Georgia having this line, right? And it's at home, and there's always that kind of notion in betting where it's like, okay, well, if you're a home game, then spot you 3 points. So really, that looks like they're saying that Georgia plus 7.5. Yeah. Right. That's kind of how I interpret that. And I get it. I certainly understand it. I'm not going to lie, as much as I don't like it. If I was Vegas, I would probably take the same approach just because Kirby stays. You still have a very talented Georgia team. Carson Beck is still there. They have to figure out what they're going to do at wide receiver, but it's not like they've had a bunch of major 5-star wide receivers that have, been carrying the program for a while and then they don't have them. They've kind of been making it work off of what I call like a factory offense where it's just super thorough. It's not going to be super flashy. It's not going to be like Texas, but what it is going to be is just methodical and they're going to find a way. And they still have Oscar Delp. They still have some really talented tight ends there. So listen, they don't have a Bowers, but they still have some really talented tight ends. So I understand Georgia. I'm actually a little bit surprised about 4 and 5, Kyle. And I understand Missouri's at home and Bama goes to Baton Rouge. But I know this is going to come back to bite me, or at least I hope it doesn't. I have questions about LSU. I have some real questions about LSU. they have to replace 2 wide receivers who were phenomenal. Now, granted, if you're asking me to rank my questions about LSU, that's probably the one if I was an LSU fan, I'd be least worried about. LSU is one of those teams where they can lose a first-round wide receiver. They can lose 2 very talented wide receivers, and they're just going to figure it out. They always have talented wide receivers over there, so they'll have that. But they don't have Jayden Daniels. And we forget how effective Jayden Daniels was using his legs.
Yes.
I love Nuss. Nuss isn't the mobile guy Jayden Daniels is. Now, Nuss can throw the heck out of that ball now. But I'm surprised because the way I'm looking at it, and granted, this is a way too early, Missouri is going to be a challenge. That's not an easy game. So I'm really surprised that they're saying, and granted, like I said, for Georgia, usually if you're a home game, they spot you 3 points. So really, that LSU game could very logically be interpreted as -2 for Bama. But I'm really surprised about this Missouri game. I think that game's going to be pretty tough. I hope it's a statement game for Alabama where they go out there, cut the head off the snake, so to speak, and are able to show everybody like, nah, we're here. That's an experienced team. Now they have to replace Cody Schrader. And for those of you that watched Missouri last year, Cody Schrader was unbelievable for the Tigers. I mean, did it all. That guy was so darn impressive every single week. I'm really surprised about number 4. That's the one that stands out to me. Maybe they're anticipating that while Missouri will still have some pieces, the loss of Cody Schrader will be much bigger than I anticipate.
Ty, what do we know about Tyler Van Dyke? I don't know if you and the coaches talked about him last night. Is he I know he transferred there. Is he supposed to be like the starter? I was reading up on him. He has 24 starts. I was surprised to see that he's thrown for 7,200 yards during his career. I mentioned him yesterday, and Bama fans, weren't that worried about him. What's kind of the detail in your mind about a player like Tyler Van Dyke?
Yeah, Tyler Van Dyke is super interesting because whenever I look at Tyler Van Dyke, I always think back to my major question with Mario Cristobal, and we'll certainly have that answered this year with Cam Ward. But Tyler Van Dyke came into college football his freshman year. I mean, he was looking like if you were ranking, not necessarily ranking the top 10 quarterbacks, but if you were ranking 10 quarterbacks that you needed to know going from their freshman campaigns to their sophomore, he would have been on that list. I mean, he was very impressive his freshman year and then sort of regressed. Now, that's where my questions about Cristobal come in. I don't think Cristobal does well with offenses. I just don't, right? And I've maintained this. I like Cristobal. I like a lot of what he does, but the offenses he puts together, it's just not doing it for me. And if Cam Ward goes out there and looks human this year, we will know where to point the finger because that young man is a baller. Cam Ward can get it done now. He's very good. But Tyler Van Dyke is up there. They lost Tanner Mordecai, who was from SMU, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that's wrong. But for whatever reason, I associate Mordecai with SMU. Actually, they had a quarterback that had transferred from Oklahoma to Wisconsin that I think has a high upside, and Nick Evers. Well, he's transferred out. I think when you're talking about Wisconsin, I think they are questioning their quarterback position right now. They were hoping Tyler Van Dyke would be the answer, but it's almost like with Damani Jackson, Kyle. When you have a lot of negative tendencies that have been instilled, it can be difficult to overwrite that. I'd like to bring everybody back to a recruit who I think perfectly encapsulates this. Or not even a recruit, a player. I want everybody to remember, oh God, I just forgot his name. He was the Mater Dei quarterback before Bryce Young, JT Daniels.
Yeah.
JT Daniels, his freshman year, he had an offensive line that was awful. I mean, just absolutely awful at USC. And he had to continually run away from pressure. And because of that, he wasn't making the quote unquote, oh, that's a beautiful form throw. He couldn't. When you look at his sophomore year, and I understand he got hurt early, but ever since that freshman year at USC, it always looked like JT Daniels was shell-shocked, where he didn't feel like he could plant his feet and let it rip. It felt like there was a lot of negative tendencies that occurred, whether that was by, coaching or just by happenstance. And he was always trying to override that. So maybe that's Tyler Van Dyke, but I think they have some questions at quarterback right now.
I wanted to ask you this about the top quarterbacks in college football. And this will probably be something I talk about tomorrow in my segment before I bounce out if you're now. But I just want to get your take, Ty. You can do your research and we can talk about it tomorrow when we get together. But who are the top 5 quarterbacks right now in college football for 2024? And I know you haven't had a chance, so I'm going to ask you now and then we'll dive into it tomorrow. So give me your top 5 returning college football quarterbacks for 2024. If you miss some, don't worry, you do your research and come back with it tomorrow.
So yeah, this is going to be very preliminary. This is going to be in no specific order, right? But right off the bat, when I look at the SEC, I mean, you've got some really talented quarterbacks in the SEC alone. Already I have a 3. Once again, no particular order. Milroe, Quinn, and Cam Ward. Right off the bat, it's just like boom, boom, boom. Those 3 are really good. Now, I'm interested. Yep, Louis. Noah Fafita out there at Arizona was really darn good last year. Now, do I think that qualifies him as a top 5? Maybe not. Maybe not even a top 7 or 8. But what I can say is if you're wondering, hey, what's a kind of an under-the-radar player? I don't even know if I can qualify him as under-the-radar, but what's kind of a player, Ty, that you would say, watch this guy because he's really fun? Noah Fafita at Arizona. I mean, I had a blast watching Arizona games. He's not tall, but he is a really good quarterback. I know that you have all those. Brady Cook is another one. He's very good. I don't know if he makes this list. I will give it to Beck, though, because I think Beck going into this year is going to be a really solid quarterback. And I also think that's a product of the offense. It's not like I don't think that he has the upside of, say, a Quinn Ewers or even a Jalen Milroe. But what I do think is he is going to be a solid quarterback that's been in this offense and is a product of this offense. So I'd put Beck up there. And, man, the last 2, it's crazy because I'm naming a bunch of SEC guys. I think, man, this is it. This is tough because I'm bouncing between a few.
Yeah.
Brady Cook was really good last year, but I just don't think I could sleep well at night knowing that he is on my top 5. But at the same time, he's got one of the better receiving cores in the nation.
All right, so run me down your list real quick. So I'm gonna keep this for I'm gonna say May 7th, Ty, on my notes. All right, so read me your list real quick. No order.
You know what, Louis? You win, man. You win because you're 100% right, and I don't know how that name escaped me. Thank you very much for the alley-oop. That's a Chris Paul moment, and I'm Blake Griffin just slamming it down. So no order. I'm going to go Milroe, Quinn, Cam Ward, Beck, and Dylan Gabriel.
Cam Ward, Dylan Gabriel, Beck, and who was your 5th? Milroe, Ward, Beck, Gabriel.
And Quinn.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay.
Because when Quinn sets his feet, I'm telling y'all, that's as simple as it is. If you go and watch Quinn Ewers, Sanders, that's a good one, Kelly. Sanders is a very, very good one. I think that there's a big argument to be made because he does a lot despite not having a lot. He had some wide receivers, but the offensive line was horrendous. They refused to run the football, even though they had great running backs from Alton McCaskill, Dylan Gabriel, Cavassier Smoke. Brady Cook, Kelly, I'm very close, but I just don't know. I don't know, but I don't disagree. But with Quinn Ewers, Kyle, I'm telling you, if you go watch Quinn Ewers, his inconsistencies, it all boils down to setting his feet. When he sets his feet, holy cow, is he dangerous. Max says, what? No Nico Iamaleava? See, Max, here's how I made this list. This is a great question because I was very close to putting a Nico or a Jackson Arnold. But my thing is, Max, is as I sit here right now, it's tough for me to project them over guys that I've already seen either make a college football playoff or compete at the highest level, right? So I do think at the end of next year, though, Max, you could be 100% right. I think Nico, he was my favorite quarterback out of that class, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Jackson Arnold, Nico, Arch Manning. Nicholas Iamaleava was my favorite quarterback in that class.
ESPN has it, and I'll do on my segment tomorrow. I'll talk about this, but ESPN has it like this, Ty. They have Carson Beck 1, Dylan Gabriel 2, Quinn at 3, Jalen Milroe at 4, Noah Fant at 5. Now, these are the quarterbacks that a lot of us didn't mention inside the comment box. Jackson Dart is up there. That's kind of interesting. Them at 6. Jalen Daniels, Shadori Sanders, Cameron Rising, and Cam Ward. So that's their.
Cam Rising's a good one.
That's what I was thinking. That too.
Good one.
He's talented, right? Like he's good.
You know, he was in that Texas quarterback room before he transferred, right? Like that Texas quarterback room. There's another, situation where that's an incredible room. Cam Rising is good because that.
I think so too.
Utah program, man. Kyle Whittingham, I think, is probably the most, and I don't want to say disrespected, but most slept on coach in the nation. That guy is good, real good as a head coach. And I think Utah going to the Big 12, if I was picking who is going to win the Big 12 right now, it'd be tough for me not to say Utah.
Is this is going to be my last thing. Is Shadori Sanders a top 5? Is he like a first round pick?
I think he could be, man. And here's the reason why. Whenever we look at Colorado last year, whenever you're saying, okay, what made you tick as opposed to what made you fail, he wasn't the reason they were losing, right? No matter how you feel about what's happened on Twitter, I know it's rubbed some people the wrong way. No matter how you feel about the way they're doing things at Colorado, I know let's keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah.
That guy was making some crazy good throws. He was making some clutch throws, and he was not the reason they were losing at all. They had a terrible offensive line, no consistency in the run game, even though, like I said, Cavassier Smoke, Alton McCaskill, Dylan Edwards, just 3 off the top of my head are unbelievable running backs. You didn't utilize them. They had a tight end that I was really looking forward to, who they didn't actually I don't think he even made it to the season because there was some bad blood there, Seydou Traore, and I thought he was going to be a guy. Sanders is good. Shador is real good. I would not be mad at somebody putting him up there because there was a lot of deficiencies there. Now, granted, they had great wide receivers between Amari and Miller, who actually, by the way, is a family member of someone I podcast with all the time. Amari and Miller is his cousin. Between him, Jimmy Horn, Xavier Weaver, Travis Hunter. I mean, they had some wide receivers, but Shador, he's good. He's real good.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think he can ball out for sure. And I think you'll see more of that this year in another challenging schedule for Colorado. And just kind of curious to pick your brain on the quarterbacks because, you certainly have a lot of talented quarterbacks that are coming back with a lot of experience. And Jalen Milroe is certainly one of them. So we'll talk about that more tomorrow. But Ty, if you want to close out the hour, man, please support Ty Hayes from Around the Table Sports. Does an amazing job. You can also catch him on Bleacher Report. He talks a lot of college football, topical videos. He does a really great job, true professional. And we really appreciate you, Ty, being here, man. Do your thing. And I'll catch up with you guys as news happens right here on Bama Football on YouTube.
Appreciate it, Kyle. Appreciate everybody in the Undefeated. And yeah, the more I think about it, I might have to put Shador in my top 5 list, guys. That guy's good. He is good. I'm going to go back and watch some, but he was a reason they were winning, right? He was certainly, and that defense was not good. That defense was really not good. But that first game versus TCU, I mean, what a statement. What an absolute statement they made. And I know Dylan Edwards went crazy in that. Now, what's going to be really crazy is, has Dylan Edwards officially committed yet? I think he did to Kansas State. And that was a place whenever he entered the transfer portal. We talked about it over here on this channel. Yep, he's at Kansas State. And y'all will remember, I was telling y'all, watch Kansas State now. Watch Kansas State. I'm actually a little bit disappointed that Notre Dame, and maybe they did. If I was Notre Dame, I'd have full court pressed Dylan Edwards. He was committed there before he decommitted and went to Colorado, but before he went to Notre Dame, he was committed to Kansas State. TCU ended up being like 5-6. Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But like, it was still, Jimmy, that Colorado the year before was 1-11, right? So no doubt. Like it wasn't that TCU was a world beater, and that's certainly not my contention, but they were in a much better position than was Colorado that first week in terms of a lot more continuity, a lot more familiar faces. And one of the reasons why I've always said I am going to, and I maintain that I am going to keep up with Colorado probably as much as I keep up with Alabama, is because to me, this is interesting data, ladies and gentlemen. This is an interesting almost study that's happening right before our eyes, and that's the viability of the transfer portal. And one of the things I talked about, one of the only questions I have with the transfer portal is football is a game where relationships matter, both in recruiting and on the field. You don't have to be buddy-buddy with the guy next to you, but you do have to have some sort of commonality to be able to work as a cohesive unit, right? That's why offensive line, you listen to the Oklahoma fans. They had a good offensive line last year. Not a great offensive line, but they have one of the best offensive line coaches in the nation, Bill Bedenbaugh. I mean, that guy's insane. They were upset because they continued playing musical chairs throughout the year. And with an offensive line, you got to be able to have those guys have a cohesive relationship. Now, why I bring that up in relation to Colorado? Well, you're turning over the roster once again at Colorado. I have questions about whether or not that's viable. Now, not saying that it's not viable. I don't know. But what I am saying is that for someone like me, who is an absolute nerd, and I am, let's be honest here, I am an absolute nerd, I am super interested by what the data is going to give us on a team like Colorado. I am fascinated because if they go out there and do real good things, watch out. Even though we're already starting to see teams move differently with the existence of the transfer portal, it's going to be much different. Because I think there's a lot of coaches out there right now that are still operating on this old school, and maybe old school is not the right mentality, but almost like the book of football. They're still operating off of this book of football. And that book of football states like, hey, you want to get in people, you want to have camaraderie. And I'm not saying that the transfer portal prevents you from having camaraderie, but it's also like, why are you transferring? You have a bunch of guys who might not know each other for more than 1 year at a time. That can be tough. That can be very tough. Not only from a player standpoint, but certainly from a coach's standpoint, because you're constantly having to reteach. You don't get to go into a year with all this continuity. So I'm fascinated. I'm absolutely fascinated. I will be keeping up. I will absolutely be keeping up. What's weird is Dylan balled against TCU, but then they barely used him again. That is the biggest question last year. The biggest question I had. Dylan Edwards was a monster, man. An absolute monster. I really kind of wanted to see Notre Dame make another pass at him, and maybe they did. Maybe I just missed that. I didn't remember reading anything that Notre Dame was going to be heavily pursuing him when he hit the transfer. But if I was any school in the nation that needed even a sliver of running back help, I'd have full court press Dylan Edwards. There's no doubt about it. I remember we were talking about it over here. Shout out to Run the Table Sports. I believe that's the guy's name, but great contributor. Has always had great, insightful comments. He was talking to me whenever we were talking about Dylan Edwards, and he was like, hey, I think Alabama should get him. And I couldn't tell him he was wrong, right? I could say, hey, I disagree just because I think we already have a loaded running back room. But there's not a team in existence that's worse off for having Dylan Edwards. And he's 100% right there. Like, the one thing I couldn't argue is that, hey, this guy isn't phenomenally talented. This guy doesn't have incredible ability that you can put on kick return, possibly punt return, though that might be a stretch. You can use him as a running back, but you can also use him as a slot wide receiver. I mean, the guy had a great point. I could only argue that Alabama's running back room was loaded, and that's not where I would be looking at needs just from a scholarship perspective. But if scholarships didn't exist and you could have as many, he's 100% right. He is one. I don't know if he's in here watching, whatever the case may be, if he'll see this later, but he was 100% right. And there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Like, that guy's so talented, every school in the nation. If you needed even a sliver of running back help, you probably should have reached out. That guy's good. The Big 12 is going to be very interesting, but ladies and gentlemen, the SEC is going to be fascinating. Now, I want to hear from everybody in the chat, everybody in the Undefeated. What surprises you about this list right here? -7.5 at Wisconsin, +4.5 against Georgia. Remember, from a betting perspective, surprised UGA didn't go after him. I am too, but if maybe I don't know why, Louis, and I'm probably wrong, so don't quote. I feel like UGA may have reached out, but I don't know. There's a difference between reaching out and offering, right? So whether they offered, I don't know. But for some reason, I feel like there were some schools that were going after or had reached out. Let me rephrase this. Let me be very purposeful with my words. I feel like there were some schools that had reached out to Dylan Edwards, and I remember looking at the list and thinking to myself, please, no, don't go there. Please, for the love of all things holy, don't go there. I don't want to have to deal. Yeah, okay, was that what it is, Louis? They reached out. And like I said, just because you reach out, that could be just a, hey, what are you looking for? That doesn't mean they offered. But there were a few teams that had reached out to Dylan Edwards that I absolutely sunk my head down, and I was like, please no. We don't need to deal with this. Go to the Big 12, be with Kansas State, and make your impact there. And what's interesting is, in theory, he's now in that same conference with Prime again. So fascinating stuff there. So I asked everybody in chat what surprises you about this initial list. We have Josh Upton saying +1 at LSU. We have Max Tony saying surprised we're favored at Tennessee, honestly. I can understand that. Has Jones committed yet? Not to my knowledge, Glenn. Not to my knowledge. Tony, my man, happy you're in here. Versus UGA should be more like +3. And what's interesting, Brian, is in betting perspective, whenever you're at home, they usually say that's like a proverbial 3-point swing. Right? Home games, or at least I'm not big into college football betting. I'm not big into sports betting, because the more that I do this, the more I go deeper into my analyst career, or whatever you could call it. Guy with a microphone in a bedroom, all fair. The deeper I go into it, the more I realize, man, this stuff is wild. And I think working at Bleacher Report this past season, having that national show air every Friday on Bleacher Report, where we picked college football games, we picked 133 games. Yeah, we picked 133 games this year. And I realized, while I did great, this is tough. I wish that I would have gotten the spreads right, because if I would have gotten the spreads right, make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, I would be doing college football gambling content. Out of the 133 games we picked, I won 105-28. Brought that gold home to Crimson Tide Nation. But it made me open my eyes and realize, this is wild, trying to pin this down. The people that are good at it, good for you. But I do know that two of the guys on that panel with me, they were big into the sports betting. And they would always say, hey, it's a home game. This is the line, but you already know with the home games, that's almost like a 3-point swing. So with this being at Alabama, it's almost like they're saying +7.5 Georgia. So that's what's fascinating to me, Brian. I understand +4.5. I really do. Just because of a continuity standpoint. But Kelly says there's nothing that surprises you. Once again, Tony, good morning, my man. I got to agree with Josh here. +1 at LSU. And this is going to come back and bite me in the butt. Is it +7? Yeah, it was something like that, Louis. It was something like that. I remember it was something close to that. And granted, I believe that the line kept moving down, but I believe you're right. Josh, I completely agree with you here. Now, here's what I will say. You beat me to it, man. You beat me to it. Vegas is very cognizant of home and away. And that's why, like, if you talk to people who are super deep into the betting scene, they'll tell you home games are like a 3-point swing in your favor, where you're almost granted 3 points. So LSU being +1, if I take that same theory, because it's LSU, they're almost saying that it's anywhere from +1 LSU to -2. But LSU is surprising to me. LSU is very surprising to me. No, I was mistaken, ladies and gentlemen. I was wrong about something. I thought Will Campbell was already expired in terms of his eligibility, or that he had reached the NFL, but apparently that was just me hoping. He's back. He's back. He's going to be one of the top players off the board in my estimation in next year's draft. Will Campbell is very, very good. So getting pressure on Nussmeier will be key at that LSU game. But LSU's defense, I have real serious questions about it. And if we are arguing, okay, Ty, it's going to be a shootout, Alabama's defense versus LSU's defense, right? Like, who's going to be able to get more stops? As we currently sit here, I would bet on Alabama's defense getting more stops than LSU's defense. And I would feel a little bit differently if they kept either Neighbors or Brian Thomas. Because Alabama's major question right now is relegated to the cornerback position. And once again, I say this all the time. We're not questioning the talent in the room. It's just that there's a lack of experience. Now, granted, by the time you play LSU, a lot of those young guys are going to have learned in the fire. So they're not going to be, like Stephen A. Smith would say, smelling like Similac. They're going to be much more proven at that point. But if LSU still had Brian Thomas or Malik Neighbors, I would feel less confident, because then it's like, okay, your best player on offense is going to be going right up against our biggest weakness. Weakness relative speaking. But let's be honest, when I look at the defensive front, when Jaheim Otis is healthy, oh my goodness. That is neither here nor there, sweet home. When Jaheim Otis is healthy, oh my goodness, he's so talented. He's so talented. He's an absolute wrecking ball when he's healthy. Tim Keenan really emerged through last season. Now I think when you pair those two on the interior, that's going to be a really good defensive interior. Really good defensive interior. I love that Lawson is back. I love that Campbell is back, right? That's more continuity. I have questions about the edge, but I think getting LT Overton is huge. Jamarian Latham being there, huge. Jordan Renaud, huge. And then even past, Otis and Tim Keenan, you also have Tim Smith, you have James Smith, you have Edric Hill, you have Jeremiah Beeman. We saw Jeremiah Beeman contribute and make some plays on A-Day, which I was really excited about. Whenever I saw that young guy making plays, that's where I got really excited. LSU needs to, I don't know. I'm very interested in this. I agree, Josh. I agree. LSU is the one that stood out to me. And I do agree with you that as we sit here and talk, I think Missouri is a much bigger threat than is Wisconsin. You're 100% right, Max. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And that's kind of what I said earlier, right? Where when I said I had questions about LSU, if I was ranking those questions from questions of least concern to questions of most concern, receiver would probably be my question of least concern, because LSU is one of those places where they'll send guys to the NFL and you're like, oh, thank God we don't have to deal with them anymore. And next year you turn around and it's just like, where the heck did you get him from? What in the world is happening? You have another guy. So I 100% agree with you, Max. I 1,000% agree with you. And who is it? They make a great call. Louis. They have Aaron Anderson. Nick Saban loved Aaron Anderson. He's got a lot of ability. He's going to be nasty in that slot. Well, that's assuming they play him in the slot. That's not to say that they will. They could play him anywhere, but he in the slot would be just a nightmare to cover. I mean, geez, trying to isolate him on different mismatches. We got to get some consistent. Yeah, 100%. 100%. And that's why I kind of brought up, I have questions, not concerns, but questions about the pass rush position for Alabama. And especially if we're talking about this LSU game, right? Nussmeier, very talented quarterback. Very talented quarterback, but he's not mobile like Jayden Daniels, where Jayden Daniels was one of those guys where you had to be very purposeful with your pass rush on Jayden Daniels because you could mess up and he would be gone. I mean, he'd just take off on you, and he was so dangerous. So dangerous. Yeah, he does, Louis. No doubt about it. I'd be more likely to favor LSU if it was earlier in the season. That's fair. That's fair. I'm someone who has some questions about the Tigers this year. And the biggest question I have isn't actually about the quarterback position. Right? I think Nuss is a good quarterback. I don't know that he's a great quarterback. We'll find that out this year. But I think he's a solid quarterback. I think that there's far worse options out there. You know what I mean? Like, I think that if you're out there with Jayden Daniels and you have to say, okay, well, we just lost Jayden Daniels, I think you could do a lot worse. But he's not mobile like Jayden Daniels is. And is that going to hinder them? Kyren Lacy is going to be a problem, Jacob. There's no doubt about that. Kyren Lacy's a dude. Now, I assume I'm interested to see how this works. I'm very interested to see how this works whenever we get to that point. Kyren Lacy's very talented. And I'm just very happy that Amarian Miller didn't hit the transfer portal, because Amarian Miller's from Shreveport. That Colorado wide receiver. If he would have hit the transfer portal and gone to LSU, oh boy, that's where I'd have been like, okay. I'm still going to pick Alabama because I have some real questions about your defense, but oh boy, this just got a lot more difficult to deal with. So thank the Most High that he is staying put at Colorado. One, because he's going to do great things there. I have no doubt about it. Two, we don't have to deal with him in the SEC. And ladies and gentlemen, I've seen practice footage of Amarian Miller. He's real good. Like, I'm telling y'all, if they use him right this year, he could be a breakout star in college football this year. Amarian Miller, wide receiver for Colorado. He's good. He's real good. Real good. Lacy is another great one. Yeah, that's why I said, man, if I'm ranking my concerns for LSU, least concerned to most concerned, I'm least concerned about their wide receivers. They always figure it out. It's what they do. Yeah, and that's a loaded wide receiver room as well. They still have Jimmy Horn out there. I picked Perkins as my preseason best player in the country last year, but I missed that badly. They messed him up and had him playing lost. Yeah, Hacker, you know what? I'm going to come to your defense right here. I don't think that you missed. Man. I think Perkins, when used correct, is one of the best players in the nation. I don't think you missed there, man. I think that they don't know what to do with Harold Perkins. They have no clue what to do with Harold Perkins right now. And I think it shows. Right? Like, they need to really decide, this is how we're going to use you, and let it be. That guy, just put him where he's doing well and let him work. Happy hump day at Ty, along with my dudes and dudettes at the Undefeated. Sorry for jumping in so late, but trying to get some things done. Hey, you never have to apologize, man. Your time is unbelievably valuable. Health and time are the two most valuable assets we have. And I'm just very appreciative for every person who likes to be in here, likes to talk football, likes to hear me ramble. I'm very appreciative for all of it, even if it's just for a few seconds, Maddie. I understand. Life comes first. I'm just blessed that y'all want to listen to anything I have to say. So thank you very much for that. Caleb Taylor says Bama should beat Wisconsin by 3 touchdowns. I think Bama beats UGA by 2 scores at home and helps. I'm worried about playing Tennessee and Mizzou at home. They were a good team last year, and yeah, Burden is a problem. Burden is an absolute problem. But and we were talking about this earlier, Caleb. My biggest question for Missouri is how do you replace Cody Schrader? And I'm not saying they can't. That's not my contention. But you want to talk about someone that should have full court pressed Dylan Edwards? Missouri. Missouri should have full court pressed Dylan Edwards. Having to replace Cody Schrader, and I understand Cody Schrader did it all. But if I was Missouri, I'd be looking like, man, we've got some talent here. I'm a full court press Dylan Edwards, get him in this room to mitigate the loss of Cody Schrader so we can try and hit the ground running. But it's not just glad Mizzou. Yeah, right, Louis, right? I mean, Dylan Edwards at Missouri, we'd be having, I don't know, man. That'd be tough. That'd be very tough. I honestly think we handle Missouri at home. Kelly, if you don't mind me asking, what are the stipulations on which like you think that Alabama succeeds? And I'm not questioning it. I'm just very interested, right? Because I'm always interested in hearing what y'all think. Not even from a debate standpoint, but from a standpoint of learning, right? I am an imperfect human, as we all are. And I always say, like, I embrace being wrong. I embrace failing because it's learning. Not to say I like being wrong. I mean, you ask my wife, I hate being wrong. Being right's my favorite thing in the world. I hate failing. But I embrace the opportunity to take something away from a loss, from a being wrong, from a failure. I embrace that opportunity. I'm not letting Burton, but I don't think, I don't think he'll go that high. And mainly because I'm really excited about our back end, right? I think Keon Sabb is going to be a great player for Alabama. I think Malachi, his experience, right? Like he's such a versatile player. And then Red Morgan or Devontae Smith, whoever gets that last position. I mean, I think Alabama at the back end is good, is very good. And if there was any way we could put Damani Jackson head up on Luther Burden all game, I'd be very happy about that. Sweet Home Bama says maybe a one and done. I hope not. Drake's Mansion. Oh, are you talking about what happened last night, Jor? I'm not going to lie. That cover art for Not Like Us is wild. Absolutely dastardly. What's Missouri's defense looking like, Ty? We know about their offense and they're capable, but what about the defense? So here's what I was actually about to say. Missouri, depending on where you look, they got one of the best players in the nation last year, Williams Nwaneri. Now, Williams Nwaneri is such an interesting prospect to me because his body type means that you could probably put him at the edge or you could bulk him up and move him to the interior, right? A little bit like Keon Keeley. A little bit like Keon Keeley, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's a bit rangier. Yeah, I saw that last night, huh, Jor? I saw that. I heard about that. That's wild. So, Williams Nwaneri is super interesting. Let me look. I'm interested because I think that there's a lot of similarities. Like, I think that Keon Keeley was naturally a bit, well, he was big. Let me look at whenever they came out of high school. Okay, so I'm wrong, actually. Keon Keeley in high school was 6'5", 242. Williams Nwaneri out of high school was 6'6.5", 260 pounds. And if you look at the composite, he was the number 8 player in the nation, the number 1 defensive lineman, the number 1 in state. If you looked at the 24 sports rating, they had him as the number 6 player in the nation, the number 2 defensive lineman, probably behind LJ McCray. Okay. Behind LJ McCray, who's now at Florida. So Williams Nwaneri is a name to know. I don't know that Williams Nwaneri will be I don't know that he'll be like a year one dude, because I think he needs a bit of time to get acclimated. But he's very talented. He's got a lot of upside. Now let's check out their defense as a whole, because off the top of my head, I've got to be honest with you. I remember when I was watching Missouri, I remember their offense very well, but I don't really remember their defense off the top of my head. So let's check it out. Let's see how they finished out the year in terms of scoring defense. Wisconsin finished out the year with the top 20. Missouri was right there at 25. Missouri was there at 25. To put that in perspective, Clemson was 30. Texas A&M was 35. Auburn was 41. OU was 47. So they had some defense last year. Let's check them out. Now, I think they had a cornerback who had a bunch of interceptions, but I don't know if he's still there. No, their cornerback that was so good got drafted in round 5. They lost both. Thank you, Jacob. You beat me to it, man. I was on a different page, but I have no doubt you beat me to it. They lost both their starting cornerbacks, and one of them was good. Chris Abrams-Drain. He was a player. Derek Austin says, why did Minor cancel visit? So, Derek, from my understanding, it's because they expect Deshaun Jones to commit, and Bama is only after one outside corner. So if they get Jones, they wouldn't take Minor. I believe they only have 3 scholarships left. And right now you're looking at the interior offensive lineman from Michigan State, who has the familiarity with Coach Cap. You're looking at Deshaun Jones and King Mack. Now, here's where it gets bad, Derek, is if Jones, and I'm not saying I know anything. I've always told y'all this. I am an opinion piece. That's it. I have nuggets hit my phone from people who know a lot, but that's few and far between. That's very few and far between whenever I'll get these little nuggets. But if Jones doesn't commit, and I'm not saying that came from anywhere, I set all that up to let you know this is just my opinion. If we miss on Jones, that's not good, because then we didn't get the Kobe Minor visit. So we better hope we get Deshaun Jones. And all signs are pointing to him committing. So, yeah, hopefully that's what it is. I like the drum set there, my man. Yeah. No doubt about it, Louis. I have no reason to think that he doesn't commit. I'm just saying, if he doesn't, you're going to see a ticked off tie. Like Blaze will come out. And for some reason, my name isn't like popping up, but my name on here, like it's Keeper of Blaze, Disappointer of Grandalf. They had a few guys drafted off that defense. Yeah, that Missouri defense was not bad. I don't know why I don't remember it very well. They were bend but don't break. Yeah, and when you have those high-powered offenses, it makes sense, right? That bend but don't break style makes sense. I don't know why I don't remember that Missouri defense. I remember the offense real well. I remember watching Cody Schrader and being like, my goodness gracious, this kid right here is fantastic. He's so much fun to watch. Really want King Mack. I do too. I think he's got really high upside. I think he's got real high upside. And I'll tell you, it's a little bit of an interesting connection here, ladies and gentlemen, with Missouri and Alabama. The first video I really made that like got any sort of attention. The first video I ever made that got any sort of attention was after Will Anderson's first game, and it was against Missouri. And I went on record after Will Anderson's first game and said he's going to be the best edge rusher the SEC has seen in years. I said that he's just as explosive as Jadeveon Clowney. And I said that after his first game. I'd seen enough. And what's crazy is he didn't record a sack in the Missouri game. But there were instances that you could tell, like, he just understood what he needed to do to be successful. And he was very good at doing it. Hey, Caitlin, happy you're in here with us this morning. Louis says, haven't seen Blaze yet. Consider yourself lucky. Maybe I don't want to, if it's always with bad news. No, Blaze doesn't come out with just bad news, but I'm saying, like, if there is bad news, usually I'm in mourning and Blaze is in rage. Right? Like, he's just, he's a different character. He's an entirely different character. Let Roll Tide Willie and Blaze get together. How are we +1 against LSU? That's probably the wrong Blaze. No. Blaze is nonviolent. Our Blaze is nonviolent. Okay? I want it to be known. Crazy. Absolutely off his rocker. You know, he's off his gourd, but he is nonviolent. Kelly said, I remember that video. Yeah, it wasn't good, Kelly. It was not a good video. I grant you that. But it was when I was like very early into doing YouTube. That was when I was doing some film stuff. And I even let it be known, like, hey, I don't know what defensive calls they're doing. I don't know this, that, or the other. I would say neutral. You know, I don't know if I'd call Blaze good. I have to keep him. I have to corral him. So maybe I'm a little bit jaded, but he's got a mouth on him. He says some heinous things. Wrong, Blaze. I remember that video. Yeah. Yeah, it was not a great video. I grant you that. It was not a great video, but it served its purpose, right? And what's crazy is Mr. Decent Blaze. No. Blaze is a lover, right? Blaze is a lover with the women. He would never. Now, when it comes to college football, that's where all bets are off. But Blaze is not a contentious person in that aspect, Jimmy. You don't worry a hair on your head. I did want to talk about this, though. How are we +1 against LSU, Adam? I didn't want to get away from this because we were having a little bit of fun in here. But I agree with you. Out of everything on this list, that's what confuses me the most. Now, Adam, I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. That one thing I've learned from doing content with people who are real deep into the betting scene is that a home game warrants you a 3-point swing. So let's say this was played at a neutral field. What that would tell me is Vegas would probably have this game at -2 for Alabama. If this game was at neutral, they would probably have it -2 Alabama. But I have questions about LSU. I've seen people ranking LSU as like the number 2 team in the SEC. And I don't know. I have questions about LSU this year. I have real questions about LSU this year. And I understand Death Valley at night. That's a bucket list game for me, right? That's a bucket list game. I'd love to go see Death Valley at night. But no quarterback in LSU. Now, see, Adam, here's where I stand on this. I actually like Nussmeier. I think Nussmeier is going to be a solid quarterback. Now, once again, I'm saying solid. I'm not saying he's going to be a great quarterback. I don't know the answer to that yet. I don't know the answer to that yet. But I think that they have someone that it's like, okay, you lose Jaden Daniels. And now you have Nuss. Like, you could do a whole lot worse. And I'm also biased, Adam. And I want to get this bias out of the way early. I watched Nussmeier. Yeah, Adam, no doubt about it. Jaden Daniels was sensational. There's no arguing from me there. But I do want to let my bias be known. As you all know from watching me, I always try and tell you if I have a bias here. There's a reason why, even though I do college football content as a whole, I let it be known that I'm an Alabama fan. Now, maybe that limits my opportunities from a corporate perspective. Maybe that they don't like that. It's like, oh, well, you're a college football YouTuber, but you let it be outright known that you're an Alabama fan. The only reason I do that is because if the viewers are going to respect me enough to come in and watch my content, I want to respect them enough to let them know where any bias I may have lie. And I always will admit, Adam, I'm biased towards players that come from specifically North Texas, but Texas, because a lot of the guys from North Texas I've watched. I watched them in high school. I went to their games, right? I was interning at Dave Campbell's. I remember when Nuss was in high school. I covered one of his games at Dave Campbell's Texas football when I was interning there. So I'm biased towards him, right? I really want him to do well. So I do want to get that out in the open, first and foremost. So if someone's like, oh, I disagree with Ty, understand that there's probably a level of bias happening there. Like I said, it's the whole reason I don't shy away from when people are like, oh, well, you're a college football YouTuber. How do you claim a team when your job is to remain unbiased? Well, it's because I've had to train myself in being unbiased through my legal studies, through debate, through moot court, right? Like I did that at the highest levels. I've had to train myself in being unbiased, but I also respect my viewers, or respect viewers enough to let them know, like, hey, this is where my biases may lie. And so if you disagree, there might be an innate bias that I do want you to understand and know. That way we have a greater understanding. But you're certainly right. He is no Jayden Daniels. As much as I like Nuss, as much as I want him to do well, Jayden Daniels was unbelievable. Unbelievable. That guy's so dangerous, man. I'm so happy he's out of the SEC. Respectfully, of course. Respectfully, of course. I'm happy he's out of the SEC because I don't want to play against Jayden Daniels. LSU defense could be worse than last year. That's my major question about LSU, Jor. That's my biggest question. That defense last year was dog water. Actually, I shouldn't say that because I wouldn't give Maya that water. Maya's probably in the living room right now, ears just like shot up. Like, what? Water? I'm getting new water? So yeah, I'm that defense, I have major questions about it. No, I do like some of the hires they made, Jor. Getting back Bo Davis, oh, that was a solid hire, man. That was such a solid hire. Bo Davis is that dude, man. That dude. Look what he did at Texas. Now, granted, he had Byron Murphy, he had Travaris Sweat, he had Alfred Collins. But I do like some of the hires they made on that defensive side of the ball. But that takes time. That takes time. I don't expect LSU to be a world-beating defense in year one. And if they do, hats off to them. Hats off to them. I just don't see it happening year one. Hacker says LSU has upgraded their coaches on defense. I agree. Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Yeah, Louis, Mason Smith is still back. Mason Smith is back. He was a sophomore last year, if I'm not mistaken. He'll be a junior this year. Nuss carved up that defense in the spring game because the defense is still trash. So I expect the defensive front, Jor, to be better, but I still have huge questions about that secondary. I have major questions about that secondary. And that's where I do agree with you, Jor. I have a lot of questions. I don't think that they're going to be a world-beating defense. Mason Smith left. Did he really? I thought he was a sophomore. Okay. I'm 100% wrong there. I thought he was a sophomore. You know why I thought that, Jor? Because he got hurt one year and didn't play. That's exactly why I thought he was a sophomore. Because in my head, I'm an idiot. I was counting in terms of how many years I saw him play. He got hurt one year and was out the whole season. So Mason Smith isn't there. Okay. I was wrong, ladies and gentlemen. I was wrong. So yeah, now I do have some questions about that LSU defensive front. Good looking out, Jor. Thank you very much. I'm an idiot. I was going off of years played as opposed to... Wow. And then they whiffed on Dominic Williams? Ooh-wee. I know OU needed the interior defensive line presence, but at the same time, Oklahoma got a really nice haul in this last recruiting class between Jaden Jackson and David Stone. Like, those two guys right there, I think, have really nice upside. But then they double down, get Dominic Williams. So now Oklahoma's defensive front, you're looking at like a Dijon Terry, a Sears. Is that his name? I forget the other kid's name, but they have Dijon Terry, now Dominic Williams, David Stone, Jaden Jackson. I forget the other kid they got, but they have another guy out there that wow. Wow. Okay. Good looking out, Jor. Good looking out. I was really going off of years played. Where did he go in the draft? Round 2, pick 48. Okay, so I mean he was a high draft pick too. Wow. Okay, so I'm doubling down, Jor. I'm doubling down on my questions for LSU. Yeah, round 2, pick 48. That's pretty darn good for a guy that had one whole season taken away from injury. That's pretty darn good. Michigan played very sloppy against Maryland. True. There might be. Jor, I got to agree with you. Now, the only thing I can imagine as we were talking about this is if this was a neutral site, I think it'd be -2 because of that 3-point swing. But even -2, who said it? I think it was Adam Watson said it earlier in here. Adam Woodard. I'm so sorry, Adam. Adam Woodard said that the biggest question he had was how are we +1 against LSU? I apologize, Adam. I knew it was Adam W. Give me that. I agree completely with him. That's the biggest question I have on this whole list is how is LSU right there? Yeah, my apologies, Adam. My apologies. But I did know it was Adam W., right? That, we were cooking. We just weren't cooking with a pan or fire or much of anything, but we were cooking. Let it be known. I agree with you, Jor. I agree with you. And I'm not a betting person. I learned through doing Bleacher Report that there's so many intricacies, but I agree. If you are into sports betting, I would hammer that early. Because and let's think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do something fully rounded. One of the things that I've loved that Kalen DeBoer said was whenever he told Jalen Milroe, or he told the media when he was talking to Jalen Milroe. I don't know what their personal conversations were like, so I don't mean to interject myself in that sense. What I mean is like what Kalen DeBoer told the media, one of his conversations with Jalen Milroe was like. And he was talking about how he told Jalen Milroe, like, hey, I love that you want to be the best quarterback possible. I love how dedicated you are to continuing to improve your craft, but don't shy away from what the good Lord above granted you in terms of your legs. There are not many athletes out there that have your upside, far fewer quarterbacks that have your upside. Utilize your legs because in using your legs, it will help you with the pass. You got to keep that defense unbalanced. We got a great running back room, but if you use your legs with the running back room we have, with your arm talent, and you can continue to improve, it's going to be very tough to stop. So, yeah, no, that's, man. I am, whoa. I got some major questions about LSU right now. Real major questions about LSU. Per 1 minute ago, per Matt Zennis, ex-Alabama defensive lineman Curtis Perry is visiting Virginia Tech. I'd really like to see him at Utah. I think Curtis Perry at Utah would be nasty. But that's also because, like I said, I really respect Whittingham as a good coach. Yeah, Jor, that's Dominic Williams. He's at OU now. Texas, Missouri, LSU, and Oklahoma all had a fantastic... I mean, that was entertaining to watch, man. That was so entertaining to keep up with. The Dominic Williams, Burr, Utah. I know. I know, man. What's the news on King Mac, Ty? So, from everything I know, OG, Bama feels good about their chances for King Mac. They feel good about trying to get him in, get him a part of this team. They have 3 scholarships right now, and they think that King Mac can certainly be a really great asset to this team. But there's a lot of teams out there, from what I understand, that are after King Mac. So now it's just about trying to get him to commit sooner rather than later. And it's going to be interesting to see what other teams reach out, what other teams offer, right? One thing we know is that Alabama, especially at that safety position, you're probably looking at being a 2025 guy if you're King Mac. But he has got a lot of range. He's a really rangy safety, real fast. I think in high school, he ran a 10.6 100-meter dash. I mean, that's speed. That's a lot of speed now. I think you could. Louis. But it's all about what the coaches want to do, right? Like it's all about what the coaches want to do. You're right. You're right, Kelly. You got to remember, man, I only look at things through a football lens. But you're 100% right. Like and that's a problem I need to fix. I look at everything through a football lens. And so when I'm like, oh, Curtis Perry, Utah, it's like, oh, well, Kyle Whittingham's the coach there. They usually have real solid defensive play. You're now going to the Big 12. The Big 12 is completely wide open. Texas OU isn't in the Big 12 anymore. I mean, your biggest players in the Big 12 right now this upcoming year, I would argue. I have huge questions about Oklahoma State. Kansas State is probably a team that if you're saying, Ty, early predictions on the Big 12, I'd say watch Kansas State. But I'd say watch Utah. But you're 100% right, Kelly. That's a really good point. And there's no two ways around that, right? It is different. I don't have friends. My mom and dad, whenever they had the ranch, there were some people from New Mexico. He was an oral surgeon, and he was a really good oral surgeon, right? Dude would fly all the time. He had an office in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and an office in San Francisco. And he would always just fly his own plane because he had his pilot's license, former Vietnam guy. He would fly his own plane from New Mexico to San Francisco and do the surgeries out there. But he moved to Utah. And my mom's been out there to visit them multiple times. Beautiful. Beautiful. I haven't gone yet. Mainly because when I go, we want to do a bow hunting trip for elk. We want to do like a week backpacking where we head up on the mountain for a week with some backpacks and stuff and bow hunt some elk. That would be a lot of fun. Anybody in lower? Man, I haven't been fishing in forever, Jimmy. I was actually just talking with that about my wife. My wife she just loves fishing. Just loves it. I haven't been in like genuinely over a decade. It's been so long. Been to Moab, place is cool. Yeah, I'd love to go snowboarding up there. Actually, what's crazy is my snowboard is up there in Utah because I used to go to Santa Fe all the time to snowboard, and now they have it up there in Utah. So you're right, Kelly. It is a little bit different, but when I look at this from just a football perspective, I think that like all the players, Louis, you're wrong for this one, man. You're so wrong for that. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. Unfortunately, I know. That's a wild comment, Louis. That's a wild comment. What was I about to say? Oh yeah. Kelly, you're right. You're right. It is different up there. I always just look at everything from like a purely football standpoint. I haven't done it in years, Caitlin, but I'll tell you what, my brother, we broke tie. Yeah, that was wild. My brother was I won't say like professional because before he ever competed, he really hurt himself. But my brother was sponsored by all those big companies. And my brother, whenever he graduated high school in Virginia, he moved from Virginia to Mount Hood in Oregon. And he lived in Bend, Oregon for a while. And he was a pro snowboarder out there. And then he came off. He was doing some off trail stuff out there in Oregon in the mountains, and he came off a jump and hit his knee on a rock, and he lost like 40% of his kneecap. And so he wasn't able to snowboard anymore because of impact. And so this dude, my brother is like a crazy good athlete. I'm not going to lie to you. Like he is an insane athlete. Whenever he got done doing snowboarding, he picked up a cycle and became a professional cyclist. And he was like the number one on the East Coast for a long time. Yeah. And then my sister runs marathons. She runs the extreme marathons, like the 100 mile. I know after she had my little niece, Afton, like 6-7 months. I don't know. It was something. It was within the year after she had my little niece, Afton, her daughter, Afton. She ran the Boston Marathon. She was sponsored by Saucony for a while. And my brother was sponsored by Cannondale for bike racing. So like that's part of the reason why I really want to get out to Virginia is because my brother and I surf every time I'm out there. And I want to like if let me tell you what, it's a good thing. That's crazy, Ruben. Yeah. You're better than me, brother, because I tell my sister every time. She's like, "Oh, I'm out running." Whenever I call her, you'll hear her running and she's talking to me, and I'm like, "Holly, my sister in Christ, we have cars. Why are you running 100 miles? We have cars. We have the means. We have the means. Stop it." I know my brother would be training. And like you'd ask him in the morning, like, "Oh, how far are you going to train today?" And he'd be like, "Oh, I'm doing a 120-mile bike ride." And it's like, "What are you doing, brother? We got a car. No need for that." No need for that. Jimmy says, "Come out and get on the boat." Man, if you want to take me wakeboarding, I'm there. I am there. I do ultras. You're better than me, Ruben. That's crazy. Like, I respect it. I respect the heck out of it. Skiing is fun. I've never tried skiing. I've only ever done snowboarding. Josh, my man, happy you're here. Mount Hood, The Shining exterior was filmed there. I did not know that, Tony. I did not know that. Now, before we get out of here, you and me both. Actually, whenever I was a freshman in college, right, I went to Virginia for my entire Christmas break. Because growing up, like, I would obviously do my school in Texas. And when I was really young, like during Christmas, I would be in Virginia. And for most of the summer, I'd be in upstate New York. So that's kind of why I have like a precarious relationship with Texas, where I was born here, I was raised here, but I don't consider Texas home. Because all my family was in Virginia or in New York, and I spent a lot of time in upstate New York and in Virginia. So like even people I grew up with would be like, "Oh, no, that's Ty. He's from Virginia or he's from New York." Like people even I grew up with never even considered me from Texas. Just because like the way I love it here. Don't get me wrong. I got no complaints, but I just was more of that. I did want to talk about Tennessee though. Noah Tyler says, "When is the Wake Forest DB making it official?" That is the question, my man. That is the question. That is the major question. I like the freedom out here, man. Like, when I say freedom, it's just so much open space, and it's because I grew up on a ranch. Like, I said this yesterday. I grew up like Donnie from the Wild Thornberries. If you know, you know. That was me. Better question, when is King Mac committing? I don't know, Josh. That's a great one. That's a great one. I don't know. I hope he commits to Alabama. Austin is cool, Caitlin, but get Ubers. Austin is a great place. No doubt about it. You're going to find a lot of great music, a lot of great food. Here's the only negative part with Austin, Caitlin, and it's nothing like super negative. It's so many people. It's so many people. It grew so much. It's so many people in Austin. But it's a great place, right? Like, great music, great food. But even when I was in high school, we had our state championship for debate in Austin. And that was in 2013. It was ridiculously crowded. Ridiculously crowded. And what's crazy is I actually had my nationals for debate my senior year of high school. Whenever we made it to nationals for high school debate was in Birmingham, Alabama. So that's how I got to know Birmingham, is because I was there for nationals for debate my senior year. Austin is a cool city. But Caitlin, if I would, my favorite Texas city is actually San Antonio. Yeah, my problem with Austin is nothing to do Austin. It's to do with the traffic, which, that's a big city thing. But my favorite big city in Texas is San Antonio. I love San Antonio. Like, you can catch me down in San Antonio on just like a random day. I'm not lying. I love San Antonio. That I did hear about that, Max. That's wild. I love the Riverwalk, man. I love San Antonio. I don't know why, but San Antonio is my absolute favorite Texas city. I love San Antonio. It's so much fun down there. San Antonio, yeah, it's awesome. I love it there. My wife and I go all the time. Great food, great music. The Riverwalk is always jumping. They do some really cool things with like some history light shows out there. It's a really cool place. I enjoy it. Now, before we get out of here, who knows? I've only ever been to Galveston, and I like Galveston, not for the beach. I don't necessarily like Galveston for the beach. I did, Sweet Home. We got to see some of the beaches. San Marcos is legit. I've never spent much time in San Marcos, though, Adam. But everybody that I know that has says that. So, no argument from me. No argument from me. I've just never spent a bunch of time in San Marcos. I remember in high school, because my high school was very low income. And for people that were like needing help in terms of like college applications that needed monetary assistance for stuff like that, Talent Search was there for us. And so Talent Search took me and a bunch of people on all these visits to all the colleges in Texas. And we got to go to San Marcos, Texas State. We spent some time down in Galveston. We went to Galveston for like 3 nights. They love them churros. Yeah, 100%, Byron. That's the issue with Austin, is it's just the infrastructure. It didn't keep up with the population boom there. Now, the population boomed there because it's a cool place. Like, no doubt about it. I'm not arguing against that. But before we get out of here, I want to talk about Tennessee very lightly. Tennessee is going to be an interesting team, ladies and gentlemen. And one of the reasons why Coach Sean and I have maintained we love that we're playing USF early, because USF is a darn good team. They're coached real well, but they have that same veer and shoot offense that Tennessee is going to run. I'm not saying it's entirely the same, but there's enough intricacies that you really love that you get that USF game in preparation for Tennessee, because you have all these young defensive backs. I love that they're going to see veer and shoot concepts before they ever step foot in Neyland. Yeah, San Antonio is hot as can be in the summer. Byron, it is hot. So Tennessee is going to be interesting, but Tennessee's defense has actually been steadily improving. Like, their defense has been getting better. But I hope, I have hiccups, I apologize. I hope Alabama's offensive line is better this year. I mean, it's got to be, right? They were 129th in the nation in terms of sacks allowed last year, so it's not like you could get to be a whole lot worse. Is Nico Iamaleava going to stay? Yeah, he's a sophomore. He's a sophomore. Iamaleava, man, going to be very interesting. Going to be very interesting to see what he does. I think he's got so much upside. And yeah, it's going to be a fun year for him. Is Polynesian for toothpick? Y'all are wild. So Tennessee is an interesting game. The fact that it's at Neyland, I'm actually really surprised. And Jor pointed this out earlier, but I'm really surprised that they have us as an underdog for LSU, but they think that we're a 2-point favorite at Neyland. And like I said, since it's at Neyland, really, they think we're about a 5-point favorite. That, to me, I don't agree with that. I think Tennessee, and this is way too early, I think Tennessee is going to be as tough, if not tougher, than LSU. I think their defense is trending in the right direction. Now, granted, they lost some players to the transfer portal that in a perfect world you would have loved to have kept, but what college didn't lose players to the transfer portal that in a perfect world you would have loved to have kept? That's... you know, but I think Tennessee's going to be, I think Tennessee's tougher than LSU. Yeah, I agree, Louis. I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hop out of here. If Bama gets the crowd scoring, yeah, Bama, it could be. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. We're going to hop out of here today. It was an absolute pleasure getting to sit here and talk with you all this morning. It's always just a highlight of my day to be able to sit in front of a microphone and talk college football. Absolutely love it. So thank you guys for listening to my rants. Thank you for listening to my takes, all of that. Got to get my Chinese breakfast food. That sounds great. I got to get breakfast myself, and my dog is probably out there being like, hey, I want water because I heard you talking about water, and I want new water. She's a very pampered dog. A very pampered dog. She is a princess through and through. If the water bowl was filled the night before and she didn't drink it all, she will not drink the old water. She wants new water. If it's raining outside, she will not go to the bathroom unless I stand right next to her. She is spoiled, rotten. So I got to go take care of the spoiled dog. So thank you all for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow. And as always, roll tide. And let me introduce you to the newest member of our cast, the Spinning Wheel of Doom.